Welcome and good morning. This is Luke Smith, RealVacantLand.com. And I've been pondering this topic for a while. I want to talk about lessons I've learned buying land. And so recently, I feel like I've been beat up a couple times in a row, or numerous times in a row, on different properties that I've bought and deals that I've gotten into. Not all the properties I buy go right. And so I've told you about a lot of the ones that have gone well, and I've sold lots of the ones that have gone well and things, but they don't always. And it bugs me when they don't. It's like an insult. It's slap in the face. It's hard. It's hard for me to take the ones that go wrong. And so I've been feeling down about that recently, and I started writing down the things that have gone wrong in some of the land deals that I'm in, and I would like to incorporate into the software that I've been working on and building to keep track of these properties and the deals, like a checklist of what I should be looking for when I'm buying these deals. And so I was creating this for myself, and I figured, I should probably share this with you guys because I bet you guys have a lot of things that have gone wrong, and deals that you've been into, or not even ones that you pulled the trigger on, but ones that you've been researching. And hopefully a lot more of the stuff that goes wrong in your deals happen when you're researching to buy the property than after you buy it. Because that's where a lot more of my things go wrong, is when I'm trying to buy the property than after I bought it. But sometimes after I buy them, I find out very serious things about the property that change the valuation of the property significantly in my mind, and they should for buyers too. So I started writing this list like Friday night, late at night, and I couldn't sleep. I got to get these things off my mind, right? And so I thought I'd just write down one piece of paper. I'd write the list down one sheet of paper. And I got to the bottom of the sheet, and I turned it over, and I filled up that sheet, and then I grabbed another sheet and another sheet. I got like 5 pages here of stuff, things that have gone wrong in deals that I've been into. And so this is not in order like to be professionally published as 25 things to check for when you buy land, but maybe I could polish it and make some kind of list like that for later and make like a video just about that. But this is a live video, and so I want to have your input on these things in there. I'll try to answer questions along the way. And I want to start out by saying sorry for everybody that I've ever gotten into some different land deal or one of these things went wrong on your deal. That's not what I'm meaning to say here, but okay. So I've got my horrible handwriting paperwork here. I'm going to try to read it to you. And I'm watching the comments go by. Guys are saying hi and hello, and yeah, a lot of the classic guys showing up. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Dan Potke, Digger 420, Mr. Flash Fives, Yowawa 1, Mr. Herb. We got a lot of classic names. Thanks, guys, for coming on here. Yeah, great checklist for us new buyers, Luke. And I don't know if I can totally incorporate this whole checklist into the website. I was thinking about it. It would be cool. It would be nice to have a lot of these questions answered open honestly on the website, like when you're shopping through the properties. I think that would be so much easier for me when I'm buying properties. I'm doing the research. I think first I'm going to try to get it set up in my software, and then as newer properties come in and these answers or these things are researched and questioned or notated or pointed out, then maybe I can later on incorporate that into the website in a automated kind of way. Here's the Mr. Herb says, don't ever sell land to a law student. You won't believe the contract you'll get. Yeah, there you go. Buying land from lawyers and things. Yeah. Okay. Land rig. The most recent problem, coded gate blocking my legal access. Yeah, that's on my list for sure. And gates are horrible. Okay, so I'm going to try to get into the ones that I got. And so these aren't in order, but I added one to the top here before I started this call, which is super obvious, which is the price. I mean, I've bought in properties when I think I'm buying them at a good price, And it's not. Like, I go look at the market to price this thing and put it up on the website, and I go, what did I do? I bought it at like what I should be trying to sell it at. And I just gotta kick myself, and then I try to ask for more money, and it sticks around forever. People don't buy it because I didn't price it right in the beginning. I think that's one of the biggest problems, especially new land dealers come up with, is not buying these things to price in a lot of the problems that happen that you find out about later that you might not know about. In the smaller dollar properties, I don't think it's as big of a deal. It's much more of a couple $100, a couple $1,000 or something, and it solves the problems by changing the price around. The properties go away. But as you get into bigger dollar ones, 20, 40, 50 and on up, $100,000 ones, it matters a heck of a lot more. Okay, so the next thing on the list, well, price is obvious one. Next thing on the list is zoning. And I got kicked between the legs this last week on a zoning one. But the classic zoning that I'm always checking is the use. What can I use the property for? Can I tell people we can have RVs there? Because if you can have an RV there, the thing sells super easy. It's just really easy land to use. If you can have an RV, then you can probably build a house, and you could probably make a tiny home, and you can probably do all kinds of other stuff if they let you have an RV. So a lot of the properties won't let you do RV living, but they'll let you use an RV while you're building. So that's nice to know, and that's nice to tell people about too. So I'm always looking for that. If it's like 6 months, it's kind of short, but if it's 2 years, 3 years, you can live in an RV while you're building your house. A DIY guy can show up and build a house with his own tools, and he doesn't have to use power tools if he's got 3 years to pull it off. He can go build his own house. Hopefully he's using power tools and doing it faster, but you know what I mean. So the use, like the zoning use of the land, is really a good idea to check out before you go do that. And then I've run into this a couple times, and I ran into it again this last week, is the size restrictions of that zoning. And so not only looking at the zoning and what you can do under that zoning, but you got to look at the details of that zoning of what size the property has to be in that zoning to be a legal lot. I remember one particular lot that I had in Humboldt County, and it was a pie-shaped lot on the side of the road, and one side of the street was one kind of zoning, the other side of the street was different zoning. The side that I'm in, it needed like 1 acre or something, or 1.5, I forget the exact number, but I had like 0.9 or 1.4, I was just like 1/10 of an acre shy of the size that was needed for that zoning. And so in that particular lot, I tried to sell it because I didn't know any better, and buyers found out about it, and they started pointing that out to me. And so I started researching that. I'm like, what do you mean it's not enough land to meet the zoning? How stupid is that? Like, who does that? Who makes a property like that? And so that was the first time I ran into that. And I hadn't actually bought that property. I had a contract with the person that wanted to sell the property, because I offered, like, here's back to the first thing. I offered like $4,000 for the property, and the lady wanted like $8,000. And I was like, I'm not paying $8,000 for this thing because of the market. I just don't think it makes a whole lot of sense to pay $8,000 for it. I thought I could probably sell it for 10 or 12 pretty easily looking at the market, but it wasn't like a full-on double or more. So I wasn't willing to pay her price. So I did a contract with her. If I could sell it for more than 8, I could keep the difference. And so she was happy to do that. And I was marketing it. And that was why she wasn't able to sell it in the past, was because of the zoning. I ended up getting an exception from the county because the way the road came through, it took part of the property away. And that's why it was under the zoning. It wasn't because somebody split it and sold it weird. It was because of the road took it away. And so I figured that out, and I didn't get the property sold for her, but I got it so if somebody wanted to use the property, they could use it with that exception. The time ran out and nobody bought it because it was just too weird of a lot. The setbacks is another thing I wanted to get into, is the setbacks. That's further down the list. But while we're talking about the pie-shaped property, the setbacks on that from the main road, so when we're looking at zoning, it says you got to be like 40 foot off the road. And so the thing is a pie shape, so a long piece of that pie was running along the road. So 40 foot back from the road cuts a big piece of it off. And then there was a 10 foot or 15 foot, I forget the exact numbers, on the back side of the long way. And then on the crust side of the pie, it was like another 15 foot or something. And so the triangle you get in the middle of the property that you can actually build on it didn't fit like a normal house. You got to create a pie shaped house, to fit on there and make it like 2 stories. It was a weird property. So that's a different aspect, the pie shaped ones and the setbacks. So zoning. So when we're looking at zoning, we want to look at use. We want to look at size. Does the size of the property fit the particular zoning that's being applied to this property? And if it doesn't, why? Why doesn't it? Is it because somebody split stuff up, didn't follow the rules, somebody wasn't paying attention, they're asleep at the wheel in the past, and now the county is like, go merge it back together or merge it with the neighbors to use it, or heck, you can't use it. So you got to go look at how it was created and why in the different jurisdictions to get it back to working, or change the zoning. And most of the places, it's not that easy to go change the zoning on one property. You got to really have your mind set to it. You probably have to show up in person. You probably have to pay a bunch of fees, and you probably got to pitch your case. Not only the zoning people, but maybe even the neighbors and like open committee people that might show up and complain about anything for people to listen to them, right? You never know. So different areas have different ways of changing the zoning, so you have to look into that. Okay, so that's some of the zoning. We'll get into setbacks a little bit further on down the list. Taxes. I bought properties that had back taxes. I make offers like, yeah, I'll pay all the back taxes. I'll pay you this much for the property, and I'll pay the back taxes. And then, so I'm usually always researching the taxes. That's one of the first things you learn, is research the taxes when you're buying a property to see what the back taxes are on the property. Because when you buy the property, those back taxes become your problem. It's not like you just buy the property and the back taxes go away and they stay with the person that sold the property to you. You take on that liability of the back taxes. Now, if you're running it through a title company, sometimes the title companies figure that out and sometimes they don't. They don't always figure that out. And I've had cases where I've bought them myself and through title companies where the taxes are they're not up to board. And it's not just the county taxes. Sometimes there's neighborhood taxes or special assessment taxes or different improvement district taxes, different kinds of taxes, school taxes and things that come up in that area. It might be a city tax. They might have figured out the county tax, but not the city tax. And so you got to figure out if there's multiple layers of tax on the property. One particular deal I was into, I bought 3 different 20-acre properties in Cochise County. I believe they're all sold by now. I split each one of those 3 20 acres. I bought them from the same guy. I split them 5 ways each. They're, like the laws allow you to do. And I sold off the pieces. And one of the guys that bought one of the pieces got back to me and said, Luke, there's back tax on this thing. I'm like, no, there's not. I checked with the county. I got it in writing from the county that taxes are paid off. They had paid off the current year and the previous 2 years. But like 3 to 5 years ago weren't paid off. And so when I asked the county that the taxes were paid off, they said, yeah, the taxes are paid off because they just checked the most recent couple. They didn't go back and check way back in the past to see if those were paid off. And it was like 15 grand. I already had the properties sold to a bunch of different people. And I got like I think it came out to even more. It was quoted at like 15, but by the time I paid it was like 18. You got to go through all their fees and stuff. So it was like 18 grand hit, sucker punch, right? That was a tough one. So really got to go check the taxes on these properties, on multiple layers of bureaucracy taxes and way back in time taxes. No matter who you're buying the land from, it's just, you got to do that. Let's see, we'll get some comments going by here. It looks like some good ones. So I'm going to try to catch up on the comments, then I'll go down the list after taxes. Yeah, great checklist for us new buyers. Yes, thanks, Sandra. Good morning, chat. Good morning. I bought a parcel on Blue Lake in Mendocino from you. Thank you, Digger21, Digger420. Sounds good. Thanks for buying the Blue Lake. Ever sell land in the law student question. I said that most recent problem equals coded gate. Yeah, so I was reading that one. We'll get to gates. Hello from Florida. Hello, Rocky. Happy summer to everybody too. Lisa first name Sap. Hey guys, hey, hello from Oregon on Eric Myers. Eric M says, Luke, good news. Buyer is on Mariposa. Call me whenever. Okay, good deal. I should mark that one sold. Kurt Butterfield. Hi, Luke. Hi, guys. Hi, Kurt. Luke is making me nervous. I don't mean to make you nervous. Daniel Holmland. Good morning, Luke. Dan, I got to catch up with you on a deal we're working on too. I mean, I really got to close that one. Shelby's Curtis. Good morning, Luke. Mr. Herb. Luke, we'll make it right if something goes wrong. I guarantee it. I've made a lot of these ones that have gone wrong right. I'm sharing this because I keep making them right, and it wears me out, and it gets me second guessing some of these deals. I take on bigger dollar ones. I'm getting more gun shy to take on these deals, and I'm spending a lot more time and energy researching them before I take on these deals, which is healthy. It's good, but it's I'm neglecting other parts of the business by doing it too. So I'm trying to juggle too many things, which is usually the case. Digger 420, how the horses doing? Yeah, they're doing great. My wife's doing horse camp this week, taking the kids to the beach, taking the horses and kids to the beach, a bunch of different kids. So they love doing that. Lisa first name Sat. Luke is like the boy next door. Nice face and good heart. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Anything in Iowa? I don't think we have any Iowa ones. I'm in CR. Is that Costa Rica? That'd be fun. Mr. Herb, sell those properties on terms, the ones you paid top dollar for. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can always market them for terms and get a lot more money out of them. But it's at the same time, I don't have unlimited capital, and neither do the finance guys that I partner on some of these properties with to keep putting up money on terms. And I'm going to get to terms down the list too. I'm going to talk about some terms things I've learned there. Dan Potke says, hi, Eric. Yes, Mr. Herb. I like the terms. Nice. Hello from Yakima, Washington. Hello, guys. Nice background pick, Luke. Yeah, so this is one I think I'm doing title paperwork on today. This is I got to talk to one of the guys that's in this chat. One of the names that's been going by is help finance the purchase of this property, and we've got a cash offer on the table for this one that's in the background here. If you recognize the picture and you're in the chat, we're going to be talking later today about a deal. Lisa first name Sap. Zoning very important. No, however, piano. I don't understand that one. Did you try to get a variance from the township or county? So Kurt Butterfield. So the example I was talking about, the pie-shaped property is like a year ago kind of story. The one from last week, I was on the phone for a long time with many people from the county in zoning. And so the guy that was buying the property, he offered a 10-day cash close, gonna, really serious, gonna buy it, everything. Above what I paid for it, partner paid for it. And he said, I was talking to the county and just checking things, trying to get a building permit and trying to go make this happen as fast as possible. And the lot size isn't big enough to meet the zoning. And so I wanted to verify that and figure that out. As I started talking to zoning, and sure enough, he's right. One side of the street is got annexed by the city, and part of the property got taken away by Department of Transportation, where Little Podunk Country Road got turned into a bigger road, and they took some land. And the rest of the property is in the county zoning. So the original property got split by a road, and then after the road, half of it got annexed by the city. And then after it got annexed by the city, they split the property tax-wise. So you've got different tax assessor parcel number on either side of the street. So it went from one original property where the size was big enough to meet the county zoning to two properties where each of them are not big enough. And they scraped the road numbers out of there when they recalculated it on the split. So both sizes, the usable size goes down with the road happening anyway, but you take the road out of there and then your zoning size goes down, so you get double whammied. And so the part that's still in the county zoning and not the city zoning, I wasn't able to talk to the city zoning people very well, but talking to the county zoning people, one course of action was the variance, like Herb is, or like Kurt Butterfield is explaining, and it would cost about $1,200 to maybe $1,500. And the guys were saying maybe I have a 50-50 chance of pitching my case and getting a variance to be able to build on the property. So that was one ray of light that I might be able to bring the deal back to the table with, and or do change the zoning drama, which I don't want to go through. And then the zoning guy went to lunch with somebody else from the county, like higher up. And after lunch, he called me back and he said, I had just had lunch with such and such, and together, because this was already like the head of zoning of that county, with his like secondary approval and this guy's approval, we could do this without a zoning variance, because of the history of what happened to this property. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't the people I bought it from fault. It's just like we're falling through the cracks. And so probably the reason the people were willing to sell the property to me so cheap was because of this kind of zoning mess. But they'll give me, if I write that I won't sell the other side of the property, then we can build a single family residence on the county side of the property and keep it together. So I've got to figure out if that's transferable to somebody that I sell the property to. So I'm trying to figure that out. Like maybe we could do that while it's in escrow, or maybe I could get some more guaranteed something in writing from the county that promise is for real to be able to transfer the property, or could I do it with the story and some kind of, so I'm trying to figure out how to deliver that somebody could build on that property on more than a promise from the zoning that you can build on it, because it doesn't fit the actual zoning codes and laws. And so that's where I'm at on that property. So I don't actually need the variance if I can pull it off with the promise. So it's a different cleanup story on it, which should help and make it work. And maybe I can revive the deal and still sell it to the same guy, but with that going on. Okay. So Backwoods Bungalow says a page on the website with a draft checklist would be useful for buyers to work with in deciding whether to buy a plot. The checklist could develop over time. Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of this stuff is covered in my frequently asked questions part of the website, but I could definitely update it with new things that I've learned recently. And so I want to take notes as you guys point out other things that you guys have learned in this. So I think this is a work in progress, and I could make a more polished one that I could incorporate into my software when it comes to purchasing properties, but also present it on the website for each property that has gone through this checklist and we've checked these things. It doesn't mean that we're right and we're lawyers and guaranteeing it or something, but hey, this is our due diligence. We've tried our hardest to keep the best we can, because we're putting our own money into these things in the first place, and that's why we're checking them, and then we can pass them off to you with all these checks already being in place, right? Okay, so John Bursa says, where can you go to find out whose name is on a property deed before you buy? I've heard horror stories of people selling land they don't even own. Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm getting to that. That's a little bit further down the list. I'm gonna get to that in the order of my list, so I don't get too scattered all over the place. He was just saying something else. My list jumped here. So John Bursa says, where can you go to find out who's, there's a second one. Your deals are great, but you know what they say. If it's too good to be true, it usually is. I don't think it always is. I think there's things you're pricing in. I mean, a lot of the property I have is in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, the price is low, but it's in the middle of nowhere. Like, you got to drive an hour to get groceries. Some of the properties I have, you probably have to have extra gas cans in your car to get to the nearest gas station and back. Like, how does that make any sense, Of course they should be great deals, they're cheap. So there's things like that are going on too. Kurt Butterfield, go to the county courthouse, here, the office, county clerk, at least the place to start, John. Yeah, so Kurt Butterfield's got a good point of figuring out whose name is on the deed. I'm going to get to that in a couple couple more points down my list. John Bursa, thanks. Want to know who officially owns the property before I buy? I wish that was an easier answer for that one. My wife and I are looking for a minimum of 10 acres, and I don't want to get screwed. Exactly. Really good question. We're going to get to that. Backwoods Bungalow. I'm in any business. There are usually items that need to be sold at a loss. Of course there are. And like stale or out of season. With land, it is hard to accept a loss and move on to the next deal. It's hard to, but I've sold properties at a loss. Just because of things that I learned about the property along the way. And, like I bought, maybe this isn't a good example. I bought a trailer, property with a trailer and a power line, sewer, water hookup and everything for $300 in, I forget what county, Arkansas. And I bought it from the state land commissioner. And so you get all kinds of surprises in those kinds of deals. You never know. So in retrospect, I probably could have offered less money and still gotten the thing. But I offered $300 at the time because I didn't know any better. And so I offered him $300. I get this mystery trailer, and I got street view from a couple years ago. There's a trailer there. Hope it's still there. Don't ever really know. So I bought the thing, and I put it up for sale for like $4,999, or I did more than that. $10,000 or something. I forget the price. Nobody bought it, so I dropped it to like $5,000, and then the guy bought it, and I'm like, have you seen it? Are you sure the trailer's still there, or the mobile home is still there? And he's like, no, but I'm driving over there right now. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to spend the money until he like goes there and makes sure. So he drove down. He was in Missouri or something, and drove down to wherever Arkansas this was, and the mobile home was still there. And I don't have keys or anything. It's like, go Detroit style, just take a crowbar and figure it out. So he parked in the driveway, and he went in, helped himself, took a tour, and the neighbors were watching. And it's a retirement community, so they don't have anything else to do but look out the window and watch. And this guy's definitely not from there, and he's breaking into this home that's been vacant for years. And so the police showed up like within minutes. And next thing you know, I got the sheriff on the phone. Like, I get the sheriff on the phone a lot for people touring my properties. I'm like, yes, officer. Yep, it's all cool. I own the property. It's under my name and everything. Yeah, I just sold it to him. I mean, he should be checking it out. I just want to make sure he's happy with what he bought, before I go spend the money. And the sheriff's like, this was a meth lab. And it blew up from the inside out, and the roof like blew up, and then the weather came in and it went back in. And I mean, it was a total blown out meth lab. And he said, you're responsible for the cleanup of the meth lab. And I'm like, oh no, how much does that cost? It's like, I'm not going to believe the numbers he comes up with. You could probably Craigslist it or something. And the guy that was buying it, he still wanted to buy it. We just negotiated a different price. And so he did some homework, how much it's going to cost to clean up the meth lab and everything, the environmental mess. And it's the police know, and everybody knows, all the neighbors, everybody knows it's a meth lab. So you can't just make it disappear. You got to do it right. And we ended up coming to $500. He's just going to pay me $500. I returned the rest of his money. Like, here, you deal with the meth lab. He was so happy. He bought some other properties from me. And he got a place, it's got power, water, sewer. You just scrape off the mobile home, put a new one there. It's got a slab you can put it on. He probably made a killing out of it by the time he got rid of this stuff. So yeah, like from $10,000 to $5,000 to $500 with the cost of transaction in there. It's about break even probably, right? Okay, so let's keep going down the list. I'm gonna try to go down my list too. So John Bierce says, I live out of state. Is there somewhere online I can look? Yeah. So John's asking about how to figure out who owns the property. We're going to get there. Julie Rowe. Hello, Luke and everyone. Good morning, Luke from Dave. Herb, I've been watching for 6 months, and I've never seen any complaints in the chats. Yeah, there's complaints that come up, guys. Like, you're going to see complaints. I mean, this is a public forum, people. There's always someone that'll complain about something, but we got way more positive than complaints. So I think Herb's right. there haven't been any recent complaints. I paid off people in the past that were complaining about whatever the problem was, settled them, made them happy as far as I know. Backwoods bungalow, big dollar deals sound scary if problems crop up later. Exactly. They get scarier the bigger the dollars. Not all HOAs are terrible. I just found out that over the weekend. Yeah, that's true. Some of them work pretty well. Good morning. Hello, Dan. How are you? This is from Eric Myers. Have lived in HOA and would pick no HOA anytime. Yeah, I would definitely try to go no HOA first, but I mean, I think there's places for HOAs too. Would that say Luke is a zone ranger? Yep. Oh, wow. I'm learning more and more about zoning all the time, guys. Jeez, it across multiple jurisdictions. Wow. This guy's name is Fart Dad on here. Okay. Do you suggest a strategy for avoiding the back tax issue? Any limit to how many years back a buyer can be held accountable for? Great question. I don't know if there's a limit how far back a buyer can be held accountable for. I think a lot of it's going to depend on the jurisdiction that the property is in. Like if it's let's say Arizona, for example. I mean, if you're like 3 years back in tax, they're going to be foreclosing on you and giving you the kick. Same with Nevada. Nevada's going to be sending you packing. Now, they don't sit around and let you get away with not paying taxes. They start selling off the tax liens on the property, and whoever they sell the tax liens to after like 5 years, you not paying tax, they can start foreclosing on you and sending you packing and sell the property to somebody else. Like their systems are set up clean like that. Same with Arkansas. Like you don't pay a tax, like boom, no compassion. Like you're gone. They kick you out quick. But if you go to Utah, from my understanding, I've never been in back tax issues in Utah and dealing with or buying them or whatever. But I mean, Utah, I've heard there's properties that are like 20 years back tax and the county is still not doing anything about it. Now, don't just buy Utah and don't pay your tax and think you're going to get away with it because I said so. But, it depends on the jurisdiction is what I'm trying to say. I was buying some back tax properties in Hawaii, and I was paying tax on a couple of them, and the deadline for the tax that was due for like 2 or 3 of these properties that people wanted to sell to me all at the same time because they just got the nasty letters from Hawaii. They were saying it's got to be paid by such and such date, like by the end of the month, like a week from now, faster than I could get a notary there to pay them for their property and the paper back to me so I could check it and make sure I got it. So I usually like check and make sure I got the property and it's really mine before I feel comfortable going to pay the tax. But in this scenario, I was like, okay, I don't want to tell the people I'm paying their taxes for them because they might not actually sell it to me. But so I'm like dancing in between. And it's such a small dollar transaction. These are like $1,500 properties or something that I was buying, selling for $4,000 or whatever. I started talking to the tax collector and I was asking him, what can I do? Is there anything I can do? And he just guaranteed me like, oh, Luke, yeah, you keep paying your taxes on these different properties, all the adventure companies, So I got a bunch of checks from you. Yeah, I keep paying the taxes, right? I'm going to pay the taxes on these ones that I'm buying. But I just want to make sure I actually got them bought before I pay the taxes. But the taxes are due like the end of this month, like next week. And the transaction's not going to go fast enough. And the tax guy in Hawaii said, yeah, because I see you paying your other bills. I believe you. And I'll give you another month. I'm just going to put notes on your account here. I'll give you another month. No more fees and everything. Like if you don't buy these properties, the fees will keep happening and it'll go back to the whatever, like people are going to get their land taken away. But if you pay it off in the next month, well, it'll be cool and it'll be the same number and everything. They'll just give me a quote for another month, give me a time to do it. So that was really nice of them. And since that happened, I've got that from a couple different counties. They'll give me a quote for a month, like over the next month. They just set me a quote. And they'll hold off. They'll do notes and hold off the auction or hold off the whatever the pending action is for the person that owns the property because I'm saying that I'm gonna, especially when I'm doing a bunch of business in that county. So that's been nice to learn too. But back to that question, it's about the jurisdiction. So how far back Do you look for taxes? It depends on that jurisdiction when they take the property away. California doesn't let you sit around without paying taxes. I mean, all the counties I've ever dealt in, I mean, they'll kick you to the curb and hawk that property on bidforassets.com or something faster than you can sneeze if you don't pay those taxes. Like different counties, different states are different, so it's depending on the jurisdiction. Okay, Lisa, first name Sip. Yeah, 5 through 2 minutes. Just don't want anyone telling me what I can and can't do with my land. Yep, trailer for sale or rent. The Ranger Yowawa is trying to sell a trailer. I remember that trailer. It was tan. No, the one I'm talking about in Arkansas, I don't think I even kept it on the website. I take stuff off the website lots of times. Not all the deals are still on the website. Ben Dallas says, hi, Luke. Hi, Ben. We got to talk about deal or two. We got to catch up. Ringo Star, hi, all. Showgrow official, may I ask how much it typically costs to have land surveyor go out to the property and put out post markers or whatever terminology it is? Yeah, that's a really good question. So I'm gonna try to answer. I'll answer this one and then I'm gonna go back to my list and I'll come back to the comments more. So I get too off track. So Showgrow official is basically asking how much does it cost to get a surveyor out to my property? So I've had surveys done for like $250 in desert square properties where it's all pretty well known in the area and they know where the markers are, and the guy's done some surveying around, or gal's done some surveying around the area. They'll go do it for like $250. It'll be like a quarter day kind of bid, right? More common, it's like $500 if they know where markers are in the area. And it's just like your basic square property. They'll go out and mark corners. This is just marking the corners, like put stakes in the corners. It's not drawing maps and getting it recorded and platting out easements and roads and everything to get in and out of there. As you start getting into that, as you start saying, okay, the easement from this road over here to that, and you got to go research, make the surveyor research the easements. They'll try to get you to do it. They'll try to get it from the title company, but lots of times the title company's not that good at it, and the surveyors are better. Usually I can figure out the easements, but local surveyors still usually better than me because they know what's going on in the area better than I do. I just go look at all kinds of old deeds, neighbor deeds, and plat maps of everything in the area and see what I can put together. I mean, I go back to like the patented deeds and see what the government said in the first place. I mean, some of the properties you got on the website right now, I got easements from the platted deeds that the people that owned it said there's no access, but I still found access, So I go find that, and if the surveyor's charging for that, they charge more. And so I've had them $1,500, $2,500. Now, if they're splitting up properties, and you say I got this big one, and I want to cut it into these smaller ones, and I need you to draw maps and get it recorded at the county and get it past the county. County's got to say okay, and we got to check off all these boxes. I mean, that's usually more like $3,000 to $5,000, maybe $7,000, $8,000 kind of bill, depending on where and how detailed it is. If you're making neighborhoods, I mean, you're gonna be talking tens of thousands of dollars. So it depends on what exactly you're having them go do for you. And then the other level of that is if you're having somebody go out and mark the corners for you while they're out there, and if you're going to be building on the property, some of the counties require a lot more than that to get a building permit to build on the property. They start wanting you to look at the grade and slope, for one, where you're going to place the septic tanks in the septic and get rid of the sewage and that kind of stuff, or the connections into the city lines that might be there. And they want to see where your house pad's going to be, and they want to take into account the setbacks and that kind of stuff. So if you're going to be building on that property, it might make a lot more sense to look at where you think the boundaries are by the corny cartoon stuff on my website or some app on your phone like landglide.com. You can walk around the property and see where the cartoon lines are. They're not going to be what you build up to, but I think they're good lines to use when you're shopping to figure out what the property looks like and the basic layout is. But then if you're hiring the surveyor to mark out the corners and you're going to build, you should ask the surveyor what the county is going to require, and ask the county, double check what they're going to require to get your building permit. Because while the surveyor's there, you got to pay them more to come back later. You might as well do it in one shot to lay out the property where the building pad's going to be or is or gonna, and the connections and the setbacks and all that kind of stuff. And in that plan, you got to hand that paperwork into the county. So you might want to do that all at once. And that's going to be more. I mean, they'll add on probably another $1,000 or something, maybe another $1,500 onto the quotes I was just telling you to add that part on, depending on the county and the complexity of what they're looking for. Okay, so I'm going to skip back to my list and then come back to the comments in a little bit. Okay, so I left off at taxes. And we were talking about HOAs in there a little bit too. HOA rules. So when people get back to me, they're like, "Yeah, I want to sell this property to you, and I'm taking your cash offer and everything," and or they're saying, "Give me a bid on this property." A lot of people ask me for bids on land I've never heard of. I don't even know where the heck they come from. They watch my YouTube video or something. They want me to buy their land. I look up the property and try to make them a bid, and it's in like HOA country, and all these rules like way over my head. List of, you can't park in front of your house, and your garage door can't be left open more than 15 minutes or something when you're not there using it. Like here's what kind of dogs you can have, and like the rules go on and on and on and on and on and on. And for the most part, me pricing that in is such an insult to the person trying to sell the land that they turn me down and I don't buy the stuff. But sometimes I end up buying them and put them up for sale. So if I do get into the rules, there's the fees. So the fees, lots of times the HOAs charge fees, not just like a monthly fee or a quarterly fee or an annual fee that the property owner would have, but somebody like me as a land dealer buying and selling it, there's fees on transferring the property, not all of them, but some of them. And so the transfer from one party to the next, some HOAs charge fees. Sometimes it's $25, sometimes it's $50, sometimes it's like $1,500. And I was gonna try to turn the ringer off my phone, but it doesn't seem to be working right now. So got to look out for those fees, not just the ongoing fee, but the fee for transferring it. And if that fee, like a land dealer like me, can I buy it from one person and sell it to the next person and then just pay one fee to transfer it from who I bought it from to who do I sell it to? Or do I have to actually pay from who I bought it from to me and then from me to the next person? It depends on the HOA and how nitpicky they are. So that's part of it too. Okay, so that's some of the HOA stuff. And that HOA, if we go back to zoning, the same thing, like the usability of the land. HOA will tell you what you can and can't do on the land big time too. So you want to go through that and make sure you can use it for what you want to use the land for. Some of the HOA land they try to sell me, it's like you can't put houses there. It's the land in between the houses or the land where the water goes or something. It's just like the leftover land that the HOA has that's the HOA says you can't build on because it's part of the naturescape. It's like, thanks guys for trying to sell that to me. I'm definitely not buying that and trying to sell that on here. Okay, so the next thing that I had on my list was splits. And so I've done numerous splits on properties, like buy a property, split it into multiple properties, sell different properties off. And so that's the thing I wrote down on here. So I gotta wipe my face at the same time is don't sell these splits on terms. This is the notes I'm making of myself because the laws change, like I had some laws change on me. So I did splits and then the county starts changing the laws. And so what I could split in the past and what I can split now isn't the case. And you sell stuff on terms. I've been going back to the people I sold stuff on terms that are in this scenario. So it's all figured out now, but, the laws change. And so like, well, I'm waiting for the terms payments to come in before I record it into the person's name that's doing the terms. The laws change on me. And, yeah, it's just, I don't know how to frustrating that one is to me. But yeah, or if you sell part of the property on terms, and then the rest of it, even if you sell it cash after the laws change, like just makes a mess. You gotta like unwind real estate transactions and go back because the laws changed. Or do, in this one particular case, I've been doing big disclaimers on there that say what more you have to do to bring the property into the new code of what's going on now versus what it used to be. Like build a driveway. I've got a bunch of them. You have to build a driveway now where you didn't have to build a driveway in the past. Now you have to build a driveway. Of course, you were going to want a driveway anyway, so it doesn't matter really. But now you have to prove to the assessor that you built the driveway to be able to get a building permit, instead of just going and getting a building permit and figuring, of course, you're going to build a driveway to build something on the property. So let's move on. So the guy that was asking me for, John Bisha, I think, was asking about title. And so I've got a big chunk here about title. And so title is a huge piece of buying properties. And a lot of guys say, yeah, well, I'll just have the title company solve that for me. Sure, yeah, that would be great. That would be wonderful, wouldn't it? Title companies, I mean, they'll sell you insurance and stuff, but if you look at the list of exclusions on there, most everything you're buying the insurance for is excluded. Like, if there's any liens that they don't know about, yeah, those are excluded. Like, what? That's the point of buying title insurance. You know, if you look at these title insurance lists, if you ever actually read them, I mean, you're going to start laughing at what's left. I mean, they cross everything out. I bought a house in Detroit one time through title. It wasn't a big dollar house. It was like $15,000 or something. And I think 15 was with all the fees and everything, back taxes, everything cooked in, 15 grand. Now purchase price was like 8 or 7 or whatever. But with all the fees, it was like 15 grand. So I bought the house and I tried to go hook up the water, and I couldn't get the water hooked up to the house because Detroit Edison Water, whatever, Detroit Water Company, whatever they're called. They said I owed about $5,000 in back water bills. I'm like, what? I just bought it through title. Go talk to the title company. Guys, what about the water bill? Like, did anybody check the water bill? Like, oh, we've got this exclusion down here at the bottom. If you read, point number 72 or whatever, the tiny, tiny print says you're responsible for the water bill, if there is one. Thanks. Yeah, that was a lesson learned. In Michigan, the water bill goes with the real estate. It doesn't always in lots of places, but it's a good question. I've asked on many properties since then, and everyone laughs at me. Like, oh, the water bill doesn't transfer with the real estate. Yeah, in this state, but other states it does. So that's why I'm asking, because I don't know which states it does and which states it doesn't. So I just keep asking. People keep laughing at me. But owners, okay, so back to title. Who owns the property? John was asking, how do I find out who owns this property? It would be magic, right? Like, it occurred to me one time that a policeman, at least in Detroit, when they roll up to a house and they're like trying to figure out what the domestic violence is or whatever, and who they can kick out and who actually lives there, they've got databases that they pull up and they can find out who owns the house. Like, why can't I do that, right? Like, where do they get their data and how accurate is it? And because I've done some landlording stuff, you get some calls about that and things. Like, I own the house and they're trying to figure out what's going on in the house. And it's like, wow, they've got the data. Where do they get it? And the classic sense is you go to the title companies, you ask the title company. That's what the realtor would do. They usually have a relationship with some title company and they ask the title company. But this is a digital age. And so we've got lots of different software that you can do that on now. I don't know which one to show you here first, but I'll pull a couple up. One that I'm friends with that I work with is Parcel Fact, and let's see what they say. If you're like a retail kind of user versus a wholesale dealer like me, it might be different. But if you go on here, they're starting to charge $49 a month for members starting in August. I don't know what it is if you're just like a one-time user or you're just starting, but you can look up on here. You can contact them and ask, but this is software They got 475 members and they got 1,100 users. So there's users that aren't members. So I don't know what that definition is, but if you go on there, you can put the mailing address of the property or the APN number of the property, and it'll tell you who owns the property down to the latest whatever is in the databases. It might not be today's, but 3 months ago or 2 months ago or something. It'll say who they believe owns the property. And just because it says that doesn't mean that's who owns the property, but it's pretty good idea who owns the property. Another way of doing it and getting a good idea is there's Agent Pro 24/7. There's Title Pro 24/7. You might have seen this one from different websites like I get it. I get access to this through Land Academy. Like if you're a member of Land Academy, you get access to this. But a guy that does a bunch of how-to videos and using this is Seth Williams. He's got a YouTube channel. Michigan guy doing real estate deals, Seth Williams. So, I mean, I my login's all saved, but you gotta pay something to get in here. I don't know what it is. I got an old grandfathered in account. It's like $18 a month or something. But new accounts they got a bunch of different things you can do. So let's say I find my whatever on a map. Let's say it's this house. I want to see who owns this house. It's the Sorelli Jewel Trust. And then let's say I wanted to see the deed. Click some buttons and you can get the deed. Like I'm not going to go pay for it because I don't care about this one, but it's kind of like a slot machine on your desk. The more you click, the more you pay. So, you click on documents and you can get the old deeds. You could probably get their mortgages. Let's see. They're changing trustees, so maybe someone died or Vincent M is no longer there, and Jules was probably Vincent passed on and Jules on, or they divorced or whatever. Here's some old, just different family. Here's a release of mortgage. Here's a mortgage. You could get their mortgage. You could download their mortgage and see who their banker is. Well, here's a more modern mortgage. You can see who their banker is, what terms they signed up for. Lots of times you can see the rates that they're paying, which is nice. If you're shopping for a mortgage in the area, you can see what banks are doing the good rates and the deals and stuff in the area. You can go see other people's mortgages. It's publicly recorded information. So you can see the banker on there. You can see the owner on there. You can see the ownership history. So this particular one, the last thing that was recorded was 2016, and it was just changing out the trustee. And if we go back, a bunch of different mortgages, these same people, they just keep refinancing or doing home equity lines or whatever they're doing. It's going back to 96 on here, and that's a different owner. So you're getting different owners. And if you go to the county, you can start ordering these documents further back in time, or other data sets. You can get them further back in time. So there's an idea of like if I downloaded this whole title plant, they would call it, I could go in order and see, okay, well, let's say I started with Robert Ayers. Robert Ayers sells to Robert Frank, whoever, who sells it to these people, sells it to those people. And you can see each transfer that the names line up, that it's being transferred from one to the next, to the next, to the next throughout time. And this is California. So I'll cover some more stuff in this example. California is a community property state, whereas lots of states are not. Like the western states, like California, Oregon, Washington, Arizona, and Nevada, I believe they're all community property states. I think Hawaii is too, and as you go east more, a lot more of those are not community property states. But I might have that list wrong, don't quote me on it, but just general rule of thumb, western's more community property. You got to have the spouse. So if one of these people are signing, it's like, hey, dude, were you married at the time? If you were, I got to have your wife sign off that she's okay with this, or else you just transferred half the property. You didn't transfer the whole property. So there's stuff like that in there that I'm always looking for. So when you ask a question like, how do I know who owns the property? Generally, you can use the software and just look at the last name, and it's going to be these Vince and Jewel, Gail, Sorelli. This is probably the three kids. These are probably the parents passing on or something. Gail, Jewel, and Vince Sorelli. The Sorelli family owns it. And then it's a trust, so it might say something else in the trust. These are the trustees of the trust. You don't have a copy of the trust. You don't know In the trust, it might be left to the kids or the grandkids or the church, or that might be like the real person that they're trusting this for, that basically owns it. So there's always questions like that. But the community property ones, we're covering that. Married, not married. So that's some of the things I was saying. Oh, and if you're looking at this list, another thing that can catch you is one of these people that sold the property and signed off, they might have been a minor. They might have been like less than the legal age to sign in that jurisdiction, 18 usually. So that doesn't count. Like if the 16-year-old person transferred you the property or transferred someone the property in the past, now that they're 18, 19, 20 years old, they can be like, my family told me to do that and I didn't want to. I want that property. That's my property. Give it back. I didn't know any better. Like, you're screwed if you bought that property. So stuff like that you should be looking for in the background. A lot of dead people come up in the ownership of these. So somebody says they own the property when it was their parents. This is San Diego. This example I was just showing here is San Diego County. They had it in a trust in this example, but if those parents had died and it wasn't in a trust, those kids don't own it. They got to go through probate to make sure that they own it, and you got to have paperwork from the probate court that says who the owner is before you can like actually buy it from them and get a clean title. So the kids might say, of course we own it, parents died, of course it's ours, but it's not really until they take it through probate. The parents might have been married 5 times over and didn't tell anyone. And it might belong to other spouses that are still alive. And there's a lot of things like that happen that you can't really be sure about. So without asking and checking, and that's part of going through the title history of these. I mean, I've taken abstractors classes and gone through this a lot to learn this, but it's so deeds, dead people, minors. DBAs. Lots of times they find names on deeds that don't make any sense. Like somebody bought the property and I want to have fun is the name of their whatever their operation is, their jet skiing company or something. It's not really a company. It's just it's the name that they operate under. It's not the name that they can open that they can own assets under. Like a DBA cannot own assets. And I've seen it numerous times that people buy land in a DBA thinking they're being all cool, and they're not using an incorporation or LLC or something. A DBA doesn't have a legal person authorized to sign off on it conducting business. So it's not, you can't sue them. You can't, they can't own stuff. It's not you got to get the person behind it. The person behind it, I mean, you could have a DBA name in there, but you still got to have the name of the person behind it. And so the person behind it's the one that's signing off on behalf of that DBA or whatever. But it's still that person is the only thing that you really care about. You don't care about the DBA name. So DBAs, I talked about being married, not married, and having both people sign. Companies, if you're buying from an LLC or a church, like believe it or not, I bought land from churches. Come to find out, when I'm trying to buy the land from the church, a church hasn't been registered for like 10 years. Like they stopped paying their fees to be a registered church. That's just one example. But an LLC or incorporation, they should be current with the state that they're incorporated in, or other states they might be doing business in. And they got to be like paying the fees, doing their filings. They got to have them up to date, or else you got a bad title. Like if you got a dead old gone company that you're buying the land or real estate from, and then you go try to sell it through title, and they'll come back. I mean, the title companies are trying to check these things too, just like I am, and they'll want me to get a affidavit from the person I bought it from that says the company's in order, and they want the company paperwork, and it's not. Like you can't sell it through title. So you got to make sure those companies are alive and in good standing. Okay. Let's so that's the basic title stuff. Let's see if there's some questions in the comments, and so just want to go back and forth. I don't have to be all one-sided here. Wawa trailer. Okay, so I think you guys are going back and forth. Show grow official. May I ask how much it typically costs to have it? Okay, so we got the land surveyor question in there. Kurt Butterfield, mind-blowing, Luke. Yeah, thanks guys for listening. This is stuff that has rubbed me wrong in the past. If you're just chiming in or coming in, these are problems that I've had doing land deals in the past. And if you're shopping land and looking at land and trying to buy land. These are things you should be asking about and doing research on. And hopefully I can get all these things incorporated into the website so none of these things ever become a problem with the land that you buy off of my website. I'm getting there, and more of them over time. I'm trying my heart out to get there. Doesn't mean we're 100% clean on every one of these things, but we're trying to keep all these problems off the website or priced in and disclosed and disclaimed as best we can. Gone prospecting. I complain all the time. I am looking for the perfect property and I'm hard to please. That's a good complaint. Love an Ivy Farm. Been watching you for a bit, waiting for disability to go through, and most interested in Arizona or New Mexico due to health, but it is far from Kentucky. Tips for long distance. Yeah, tips for long distance buying land. I mean, one of the things I'm getting to further down the list coming up here is picture guys. So as I've been going into bigger dollar properties over time, I've been feeling the need to send third-party individuals out to the property and inspect the property for me. Go walk across the property, make sure you don't fall into a swamp hole like waist deep or something the person can't build a house on. There's a bunch of bushes there. I can't see what's on the land. Like, let's see if it's a swamp. Let's see if it's hard stuff. Can you get there? Do the neighbors come out with guns and like run you off? Do they have a pack of crazy dogs that run you off? Do they block the access? Do they, all that kind of stuff? I've run into a lot of that. Most all of it in due diligence on buying the properties, but some of it on ones that I've bought. And people out shopping the properties call me up and they say, Luke, I'm trying to buy this property of yours, but I can't get there. I can't, whatever the problem is, 30-foot high pile of tires. Like, oh my gosh, what do I do with that? Craigslist, click, click, click. Please get rid of a 30-foot pile of tires. How much? There's always someone willing to solve your solutions out there. It's at what price, right? So that could be a solution for you. If you find a property you really like, get some third-party person. Not me, not the person that's selling the land to you, not the one that owns the land. I mean, listen to everything they have to say, but get someone else who's not involved in the transaction, who's like your realtor, but instead of paying a realtor to do it, send someone out. I like thumbtack.com. I'll pull up this website. I'm not affiliated with Thumbtack or anything. It's just an easy website to use. If I can spell it, thumbtack.com. Find local professionals for pretty much anything. Yeah, so you can get that says it all. For pretty much anything, you can have someone go over there and take pictures or walk around the property, give them GPS coordinates right off my website. Hey, go walk the four corners of this property and do record on your camera phone. Walk around with your camera and show me all the good stuff and the bad stuff. And if you see some animals, cool. Maybe you can show me the turnoff to drive in there and the road and pictures of the neighbor's house. Like, give me some pictures of the neighbors. These neighbors look like I don't want to live next to them, or they look like someone I'm going to be friends with. Like, I don't want to put those pictures on the website of the neighbors, but if you're doing this on your own, you're going to be looking at the neighbors, right? If you're out there touring it, that's human nature. That's just part of the tour. Go get that. And pay them. Like, if you're going to buy a nice house or a property and you're going to move over there, you're going to have to pay them. I mean, it's going to be a couple $100 probably to hire someone off of here, but they'll go over and they'll do it upright. Or you can go on Craigslist, try to get someone for $50, and good luck if they ever find the property, and good luck if they get pictures of the right property and stuff. I mean, it's, my experience, a lot lower quality. I'm sure you find some quality off of there, but the quality seems to be a lot better on here from my experience. Okay, so that's what I would do. Research as much as you can from home. Send someone third party out to look at it if you're not willing to go there and look at it yourself. Hi, Luke. I bought 40 in Arizona. I love it. Thank you. Thanks for buying the 40. No phone, no pool, no pets, Lisa. Yeah, there you go. There's some HOA kinds of rules. I lost my spot. Luke, can you look into land? This is just Ollie. Luke, can you look into land deals in Imency County, Missouri. Some great deals there. I don't even know where that county is. Never heard of it. Like, I've spent almost no time in Missouri. I mean, I've kind of driven through. I don't even think I've ever even spent the night in Missouri. And so I kind of like stuff that I know a little bit more, at least a little bit of a feel for it from some kind of experience. So here we got this place. That looks like a nice picture. It looks like a river running through this county. So you got the Highway 19 and the 106 going through there. I don't think I've driven either of those. I don't think I've ever driven through here. I've driven all over the country, except here. Here's Ozark National. Okay, so this is Arkansas down here. Here's Mountain Home, Mountain View. Okay, we're close to Mountain View. Mark Twain National. This is a lot of good forest in here. I bet you if we go look at how many vacant properties are in this county, it's not very many. Just looking at it from population of 600 at the 2010 census. Yeah, there's probably like 100 or 200 vacant properties, not necessarily for sale, but like in the whole population of property owners here. I bet you if I did the data, it's like 100 or 200 people actually own vacant land, if that many. I mean, 600 people live in the county. A lot, they probably live on stuff with houses, and maybe they got a couple extra parcels beyond that are vacant. It's probably a really small market to go shop land there. If you go talk to the local realtor or something, this is the kind of area you almost go to local barber shop. You know, if you're a guy, you go hang out at the local barber shop. If you're a girl, see if they got a hair salon. But I mean, it's probably like Mom's Country Kitchen or something downtown. And here's Ruby's and Margie's place. So it's probably Margie's place or Ruby's. Probably go there and have some food and talk to the good old boys that are in the shop about land. And they'll probably say so-and-so's brother has some land that he'd like to sell. That's probably where you're going to get deals in this county when it's that small of a community. Okay, so let's keep going. I'm going to skip a couple here. Destination, Bangor, Maine. Yeah, exactly. Hi to Shell says, hello, Luke. Hello. Old worn out suit and shoes. Yeah, don't pay no union dues. Yep. Luke's a man of means by no means. I don't know about that, guys. I'm always like on my last dollar. I just invest everything back into new deals. I like the I'll bring up one more website. I still got the websites on the screen. I like this one is Mr. Money Mustache. I'm gonna probably spelled it wrong. Yeah, I spelled it wrong. Mr. Money Mustache. Now there's 100 people or more that come up with the same kinds of stuff as this guy, described in different ways, but the way he describes being frugal speaks to me. And he takes pride in riding his bicycle around instead of getting in the car, because he does the math on how much it costs to get in the car and drive the car. You know, he does the math on lots of things, what it costs, what it really costs, or what you could invest that money in instead. And he's got a lot of articles about that he's written over time. And so if you go to his website and you read through a whole bunch of his stuff, I mean, you even find projects on there that he did to his house, like putting PEX radiant heating in the floor because it feels nice and it's very energy efficient. The last house I bought in Bonsall, California, that was the first thing I did, is I copied Mr. Money Mustache, his money saving solution. I bought a house with no furnace, no air conditioning. And I said, I've heard of a good heating solution. I'll build my own, right? So I copied his program. I copied what he did, basically. I got a little bit more modern parts, but I used his part list and I just copied the same project and did it. It worked out great. Did awesome. But the idea of being frugal, he presents in a way to me that makes a lot of sense. And being frugal on multiple fronts adds up over time, and it gives you more capital to invest in things and live off of. So that's, I don't know, just basic finance. Kurt Butterfield, loving Ivy in Kentucky. Do the snowbird shuffle means Kentucky for 6 months, Arizona for 6 months. Nice. Lisa, one name that tune. Yeah. Okay. Looking for a good question. I should probably skip back to my list. Adam Mixell. Any word on the land in Baxter County? Adam Mixell. Let me look that up after the show. So right now in Baxter County, I sold a bunch of properties that I got to pay the tax on, right? So I sell them, then I pay the tax. Because if I pay the tax and then I sell them, then I've got to pay the tax again on the next tax. And it's like paying and paying and paying. And if you get behind on the Arkansas taxes, a little bit behind, you got to go to the bank and get a cashier's check to pay the taxes. And you got to go to the notary and notarize some paperwork that you're the proper person that pays the taxes. And so there's a bureaucracy shuffle in paying the stupid taxes over there. It's not like you just log into their website and click, 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 and it's paid. It's a little more in depth. And then you mail it to them, and they say, oh, yeah, that was the tax number, but when the time you mailed it, but now it's 30 cents more. So we're mailing it back to you, and it's costing us 50 something cents to mail it to you, to charge you another 30 cents. And yeah, you're going to have to go back to the bank and get another cashier's check for an extra 30 cents on top of the one you got, or cash in your old one and get a new one. You get the idea, right? So paying the taxes on these Arkansas ones is a little bit of a bureaucratic nightmare for me. And so the last thing that just happened in Baxter is I got a bunch of them that I didn't pay the taxes on. And the state takes over the paperwork after a bit of time. And so we're in the gap right now between being able to pay the county and settle up with the county and the state. So the state's taken over the last grouping of the Baxter ones that I have. And I'm trying to pay the state. So I call them and let me pay you. You know, I'm trying to pay you. And it's a lot easier to pay the state than the county, but it's not in their computer system yet. So I can't pay it yet. I'm waiting for them to get in the computer system. Last week, the girl there was at the Arkansas Commissioner of Lands was saying it'll be another 2 weeks for Baxter, probably another 2 to 3 weeks for Izard County. I'm trying to pay taxes in those two. So yours might be at a mix, so it might be mixed up in that, and me trying to settle the taxes on that. I've got a request in for them to ship me the paperwork on all the ones that I owe as soon as they got into the computer system, so I can use their paperwork to get that signed and paid. So we'll see. I'll get them paid, but it's just in the between, I can't pay the county and I can't pay the state. So pretty soon it'll be the state, and then I can settle them. Okay, so we talked about a lot of title stuff. Feel free to ask more title questions. There's no way I covered all the title stuff that's out there. I just got some basics. Water fees. So I talked a little bit about water fees. Now I got burned on water in Detroit. Only learned that lesson once, right? Other water things I've run into is buy vacant properties. Just because you buy a vacant property and you're not using the water doesn't mean there's no water bill. I mean, I get water bills on lots of these vacant properties that have water hookups like set up, or if they have water in the neighborhood. Lots of times the neighborhood will slap a fee on the vacant properties. It might not be as much as the fee they get on the properties that are using water, but they'll still stick you with some fee. And you got to pay those fees. Sometimes those fees aren't paid up when I'm buying the land, and I got to go back and pay back fees on that. That's kind of like the back tax we were talking about early on. That's a fee that you should look for when you're buying land. Are there water fees on the property? So usually to the neighborhood, might be the city or neighborhood, maybe the township, but it's usually a neighborhood that's charging those kinds of fees, not the county. It's usually the local set of laws. And then figuring out who it is that it's due to, and then trying to get a quote out of them. Sometimes they won't give me a quote because I'm not the owner of the property when I'm the one doing the due diligence on it. that's just a red flag. I mean, to me, it's like, I don't want to do business there. Um, so that's for the water fees. Another one is road fees. I've bought properties that have road fees, not just HOA or city or county kinds of road fees, but they'll have like neighborhood road fees. A good example of that is Hawaiian Ocean View Estates. So on the southernmost, yeah, the southwestern, but more southernmost corner of the Big Island of Hawaii. Excuse me, nose itching. Try not to sneeze. There's a neighborhood with like 10,800 lots. And in the past, they had some pretty nasty roads that were washed out in dirt. And the neighborhood got together after the neighborhood was created. The neighborhood was created in the 50s, I think, maybe the 60s, but I think it was the 50s. And they got together in the 90s or the 2000s. These roads are so bad that they grouped together and they came up with kind of like a retroactive HOA, but it's not an HOA that was started with the neighborhood for the person cutting up the neighborhood to be able to sell the properties. That's where most HOAs come from, is the people that make the neighborhood are trying to set the rules to make it really easy for them to sell all the properties in the neighborhood. And when you're selling hundreds or thousands of properties in one market, you're saturating the market. So you want to set the rules and have it go. I've seen some of them set the rules so you can't sell until the neighborhood has all their stuff sold. Like, watch out for that rule. I had a friend bought a condo in high rise in downtown San Diego before the market crash in 2008. And he was so proud of that condo. And he signed a contract when he bought it that he can't sell until all the units in the building are sold out. And they were selling pretty fast and he didn't think it would be a problem, but the market crashed. Right after he bought it, the market crashed. He was stuck with a condo he couldn't sell. The people that built the high rise, they couldn't sell. They went into like bankruptcy and stuff. And they like did some iterations and the price, they readjust the prices down, and then they finally got theirs off, like, I don't know, 3-4 years later, but he was stuck with that condo and he couldn't sell it. Could you imagine being the bank that loaned money on that thing? Like, I can't believe the banks would loan money on a condo like that you can't sell until the whole building's sold out. But the banks got caught by it too. So it's not just me. Banks get in trouble. So check for those water. Okay, so the road fees. The road fees, back to that Hawaiian neighborhood. They made these road fees up later on. And they started using the money to fix up the roads. The roads are a lot nicer now, like 20 years after they came up with these fees. But you got to keep paying the fees. It's like, and they raise it every year. It used to be 90 and then 100 and then 110. Now I think they charge like 150 per lot. I mean, it just keeps going up. They keep working on the roads. It keeps going up. Fire department starting to do that for different areas. I've been getting some letters in the mail for, I forget what county it is, Calaveras or backside of Sacramento. A couple different counties have been sending me letters. The fire department is pushing to create their own fees. And I got a better example. San Bernardino County. They did this. San Bernardino County came up with a fee for every single vacant property in the county. They're charging like $159 a year, whether it's a quarter acre in town or a 160 acre out in the country or whatever. You got to pay fire fees, $159 a year, because there's so many different properties in the county, and a lot of the people aren't living there that are voting and stuff. Or care. They just slap that fee flat across everybody. And usually the fees for tax collection, they stack up the fees a lot on the big fancy high dollar properties and way low, next to nothing on the meager out in the middle of nowhere vacant properties. But when the fees are thick like that across the board, the little meager middle of nowhere properties that I kind of usually specialize in, those fees are dirty, nasty, don't want to pay them fees, right? So you got to look for fire fees too. San Bernardino County just started that. Other counties are starting to do it. California is kicking up those fire fees a lot more with all the fires we've been having. And the fire departments are saying, well, we got $400,000 from taxes and our bills are $1.5 million and we got this shortfall we have to cover. And the last couple of years it was covered by donations, but we don't want to keep collecting donations all the time. So wouldn't it be better if everyone just paid their share? It's like, you look at how much it all goes to like administration. Yeah, I don't want to vote for those. you can let my vacant land burn. Let it burn, let it burn, and let it burn before I pay those fees. Stuff grows back and it's worth even more. It's green. Okay, so fire code. Some other fire stuff I've been running into. In some of the areas, the fire guys, they'll tell you to cut trees, cut brush. They'll tell you to clip the bottom 5 foot, 10 foot. If you have bigger chunks of land, lots of times they'll have you cut fire roads around the perimeters of your property. If your property is big enough, they'll want you to cut fire roads through the middle of it. If you have ridge lines, they'll want you to cut fire roads along the ridge lines, or some combination of the fire department helping you and you doing it, but they can put the onus on you to do that. So I've got that onus put on me on a couple properties where I got to cut trees and cut brush, and it's just vacant land. It's like, I don't care if it burns, but they sure care. And they send me these, you're going to get fined if you don't cut this stuff. So I cut it, cut it up and get it ready. And so a lot of that I've run into is Mendocino County. So we had the big fire close to a lot of the redwoods there. They want you to trim up the branches in the bottom 10 foot of the woods and cut brush, cut branches, cut everything that's less than 6 inches in diameter, I think it is. They have a definition. So they don't even give the little trees a chance. Like, just cut it all down. It's like, great. But that's like the laws they came up with. So it's good to know about those laws in the area that you're buying land. If they have fire codes that require you to take care of the land some way, and you're going to try to hold land in perpetuity for your grandkids or something, you probably don't want the land that's got those fire requirements, upkeep requirements with the land. That's above and beyond the taxes. They're making you do the work. You got to find somebody. They'll usually tell you who's good at doing it. You're hiring their brother to go clean up your land. Okay, so the next one's topography. Like, I bought all kinds of different topography properties, and yeah, you can sell, like, all land sells at some price, right? But when it's too steep, one of the major problems of the steep land is you can't get septic into the land. It's too hard to get septic. And I think where I've run into that a lot is Shelter Cove, Humboldt County, Northern California. There's like 4,000 lots on the hill that you probably can't put septic in. And they're always trading back and forth and round and round. And no, I don't want to buy any more of those that you can't put septic in. The ones I've got on the website currently, I believe, are all sewer ones. They got sewer lines. I got picky about that over time. Because it's really hard to get water to go into the hill or go into the ground when it's on a big hill. It just goes in and comes out, it pees out the side of the hill, and you got a mess, and the counties don't like it, and you can't build because you can't get the septic to work, and you can't use the land, and it just makes a mess. The other one about topography, I mean, of course there's access problems with topography. There's obvious stuff, but another one that's not so obvious, I'm trying to do the not so obvious stuff, is fire setbacks. Like San Diego County, for example, lots of times you get on a good slope, and it's not everywhere, but some of the places, depending on what canyon it is and stuff, if you're hanging over the edge of the canyon, you can't build there because the fire marshal's got to approve your building plans, and the fire marshal wants you to have it set back so far from the edge of the cliff or the hill, depending on how much the grade is. Like, if it's greater than 25% grade, you got to be set back. Don't take these numbers literally, but figurative speech, 20 foot. But if it's like 35% grade, you got to be back like 40 foot. And so you see a lot of houses that are built back, and they have a yard in between the house and the edge of the hill for fire. So when fire rips up that hill, there's a bit of a barrier before the house gets burned. So if you're trying to get a house to fit in some property that's got a lot of hill, how are you going to get the setbacks to work? Like, the setback requirements kill the whole property. And so I get a lot of people that try to sell me those properties. I'm like, I'm not getting stuck with that again. No more setback problems from the fire marshal, San Diego County. Now, I think that happens in other counties too, but San Diego's county, I know that the most in. Okay, another problem with the land is one I had in Nevada County. It's sold now, but it's too rocky. It was too rocky to get the septic to work. Everything, all the neighbors got it to work, but for whatever reason here, it's just too rocky. So it's going to cost more to put in a septic system. And that particular property, we sold it contingent upon perk test. Like, getting the ground tested to put the sewage into, right? And so the buyer said, I'll buy it if you get it. The first buyer said, I'll buy it if the sewage test works and I'll pay for the sewage test. I'm saying, yeah, sounds good to me. Go for it. That sounds fine. And then I forget what happened. Something happened. They didn't buy the land. The next person came along and they said, I'm going to buy the land, but I want it contingent upon the septic system, that I can get a septic system into the property. And this particular neighborhood's really well known for having spots where the septic doesn't work that I found out later on. Sure enough, I got one of those properties. And so we paid to test it, and engineering company's like, oh yeah, it's going to pass. And no, it didn't pass. We got the county to come out and test it. It got tested with the county, and they go register it with the county that it doesn't pass perk. It's like, great. Really kills the value of the property. So I just paid a bunch to kill the value of the property. I should have sold it unknown. So I don't like to do that. I don't like to pay to test. Like, so if I was going to do that again, I would pay to test it on my own, and then I would change the price accordingly to what the results are. I don't want to deal where they set the price and I got to pay to do the test. Like, I'm not going to do that again. So that's the lesson learned on that one, even more so than the rocky soil doesn't perk so well. I just send the engineer out there to dig some holes and time it. Give me off the cuff timer, and then tell me what the county's going to time, how long it takes the water to soak into those holes, see how close we are, see if I want to actually go get it officially checked or not. And then just tell the people that are buying it's right on the fence. You're going to want to dig some more holes and find a place that works better than right where we tried it, right? Okay, then no access. No access is a big one. And a lot of the Land Academy guys have pointed to me or whatever, because I've sold a lot of properties with no access. And I've sold some great ones with no access. People are so happy to get those properties. Like one guy is making YouTube videos. I'm gonna keep this really generic. I don't think it's invasion of privacy or whatever. But one guy is making YouTube videos about living in storage units and getting away with it. How cheap it is to live in a storage unit, and how you can hide this and that. Water, food, electricity, all those kinds of things. Live in a storage unit and just live the meager lifestyle out of a storage unit. And he got a lot of views and a lot of credibility doing that on YouTube, and I think it's great. Go for it, have fun with it. He's having fun with it, right? And so one of his next challenges was buying stupid cheap land from me that the neighbor comes out and shoots at you, and I disclose that in the ad. And the access is like, this was another down the list. I found out after I bought the property that the access to the property, there's a road there, the easement, and the grandma matriarch of the family that wrote the easement up and split the property up between a bunch of family members said, this easement is only good for family members. Like, if you go sell the property to somebody else, they can't use this road. It's like not okay. Basically what the letter said in a much more lively language. And this grandma was, she could probably make movies about this grandma, the way she wrote this thing up. And I told the guy, showed him, like, here's the problem. This is why it's so cheap. Like, the other stuff's $50,000. I'm selling this to you for $1,500. Said, great. I'm going to do it. I'm going to sneak in there at night. They got dogs. I'll make videos about getting around the dogs. I'll make videos about building on this property without the neighbor giving me access. And she shoots and she hollers and everything else. And he's going to do it all at night on the sly, the same way he gets in and out of storage units. Like, great. But I don't want those kinds of deals. Like, the no access properties, way too much work. Don't want to take them on. This is a quick story. A lady bought, I think it's the third property she bought from me. The first one, it was basically in the middle of nowhere, and she said it's great, but the neighbors don't like her dogs. She wants something further out in the middle of nowhere. Like, okay, so I had this other property on the website, and it's like, she didn't want to return the one she got. She just wanted to buy another one. She wanted to keep it. She's like, I thought I was trading with her, because it'd be easier to sell the one near the road that she got than the one that I had in the middle of nowhere. And no, she wanted to keep it. And she wanted to keep the second one, but the neighbors got mad at her about the dogs. I can't find any neighbors on the map. I don't know what she's talking about. But okay, she wanted to keep that one, and she wanted something further in the middle of nowhere, like no access, nobody can get there, no neighbors are ever gonna bug her, because it was like 28 dogs or something. She rescued them all from whatever. She's got her own dog pack, and she doesn't like to chain them up. She doesn't like to lock them up. She likes to let them run. Like, no wonder the neighbors are complaining. She wants room for them. And so I had this one property. I was so embarrassed. I didn't even want to put it on the website. And I sent her out there to look at it. Like, make sure you can get there. And because I can't find any access. And it's like 30 properties from the road. Like, you're going to have to trespass between everybody and their brother to get there. And she's like, I love it. And so she went out there, and I don't know how she gets to the property and back. It's like four-wheeler with a wagon or something through the woods, different track every time. And she said, my dogs are free. She got a place for her dogs. And she was like crying happy. She could have her dogs there. And I don't know how she gets enough food out there for them or whatever, but she loved that thing. So no access properties, they always have an owner somewhere, but don't buy them. Like, guys, don't buy them. Don't do it. California's got laws. I've tried to navigate through it numerous times to get access on properties. And yeah, the laws are you can get access to the property, but then like going into old court cases on where people did get easements through neighbors' properties, if they do any detriment to the neighbor's property, they've got to pay the neighbor for what the neighbor's giving up. Like if there's a house in the way or a garage in the way or a pond or a landscaping, piece of the property they're not going to be able to use for farming or whatever, you got to pay them. So it's not free. It's not just a court case. Like, you're paying them. So you're better off just negotiating, here's cash, here's barter or whatever, give me access. If you can't figure that out ahead of time, like, don't buy the property. Don't buy the property. I'm trying my heart out, not buy any more of these no access properties. No access building a driveway through a legal easement or where a road belongs or whatever is one thing, but no access on paper, deeded anywhere, no access, like, it's a different story. Another one is, I've learned this many times. There's always a market to sell these properties into, but some places it's just ridiculous. Like Quay County, New Mexico, for example. I had a property on the website for 2 or 3 years. Quay County, New Mexico, 160 acres. I kept lowering the price. Finally, a couple different people bought it. Bought it a couple times, but they return it because it's just so far out in the middle of nowhere. That county had like 6 building permits in the previous year before I bought it. That should have been the red flag number one. Like, nobody's building anything. They're not building anything new. They're like adding a room to their house or something. They got a building permit. Like, there's no market. Like, I shouldn't be buying properties where there's no market to sell the property into. Yeah, you put it on the internet and someone moves from the other side of the country, but that's not a repeatable, ongoing business. It doesn't work. So if you're going out buying properties, it helps. If you change your mind, if you want to get out of the property, if your spouse goes there with you after you love it and they hate it, or whatever the story is, you want to be able to sell the thing. Not even if you're not a land dealer, but like just a retail buyer of a property. Is there a market to dump this thing in later on someday if you want to get rid of it? So if there's no market, I don't think you should be buying it. I don't think a lot of people that look at buying vacant land look at that. Like, they say, yeah, it's the cheapest thing out there, but there might be nothing out there. So I think that's a big piece of it too. And yeah, it's too much work. It takes too much time to sell the ones when there's no market there. So I'm trying not to do that anymore. And then another one is too small dollars per deal. I've been the victim of that many times. Like these Arkansas properties, for example, like I sold hundreds of them. If I could automate it in a better way, it'd be great. But there's always something that comes up, and I end up spending a bunch of time fixing something or solving some problem or something that comes up. And yeah, for the amount of money that's involved in them, it's too much work for the amount of money. It's a great place to start and learn, and if you make mistakes, it's easy to fix them. In low dollar properties, it's like, oh, yep, I should have never got that property. Take a different one instead, please. It's easier to fix them when they're cheaper. But cash buyers. Okay, so next on the list, cash buyers. I mean, cash buyers sound like the best, awesome, heck yeah, love it, right? And there's probably guys watching that have paid me in cash for properties, but um, the my wife said no more cash buyers coming to the house, and this was a couple years ago, because I don't know if the particular guy's watching, but he came with a sizable amount of cash, and he was going to buy one property, and he ended up buying 3 or 4 properties, which is great. But the amount of cash that he was talking about originally was one thing, and then later on it turned out to be a lot more, which is great. But I mean, he smelled like alcohol and marijuana at the same time, and he'd been driving all day. It's like, I don't think he was in the right state to be driving. I don't know if he was in the right state to be purchasing land. And the way he's dressed and the stature of the guy and things, I don't think he's someone you say no to, especially when he's in your house. And he's a nice guy. I mean, everything went great. It's totally fine, but it could have been told a different way. And he had cut his hand, and he's bleeding. He was dripping like blood on the floor. And I'm like trying to get him something to clean it up, like help take care of your hand. You want some gauze, you want some bandages, you want some, disinfectant or something. Don't know what happened. Wouldn't show it when he was hiding it. And it's a lot of cash, and just put me in an awkward position. And he's at my house, and does the guy come back later? I don't have that kind of cash around to like say, sorry, something went wrong with whatever's going on with your property. Like, I'll wire it to you. Or he's not that kind of guy. It's like I do another meeting with cash. Like, nothing went wrong. Just everything went fine. But there's just all kinds of scenarios going through my head. I can't keep doing this. My wife's like, yeah, right. No more. I did some cash transactions after that, like local parks and things, of much smaller amounts of money. But it's not comfortable doing cash transactions in person for these kinds of assets. So new land dealers, or if you bought some land from me or something, you're trying to sell it and the person's offering to come over with cash, it's a red flag. It's a red flag for a reason. The banks don't like it. The official real estate companies don't like it. I don't know why I said official. I'm an official real estate company. The ones that are licensed and insured up and have all kinds of lawyers working for them and stuff, they won't do it. And there's a reason. The more transactions I do, the more I see that. Now, if you're shipping something through the mail, or you're depositing it, if you got cash, we could deposit it one of my accounts at a bank in the other side of the country, and lots of those transactions have been fine. A lot of people think it's not okay to put cash in a bank. That's what the banks are for. If it's not like every day, all the time transactions, they're totally fine. They can take very sizable amounts of cash. So then we get to locked gates. Locked gates are awful. I hate locked gates. I like it when I know the combination or have a key or something, but locked gates are awful. Gated communities are awful. It's really hard for people to go look at the land when it's in a gated community and I'm not there to give them a tour or go to open the gate, or I don't know anyone in the neighborhood to give them a gate. It's really hard to sell that land. I'm so sick and done of locked gates. I hate gated community stuff, trying to sell it from afar. I got to hire a local to sell it. Basically got to hire a local real estate agent to go sell that stuff. Lock gates in the countryside, it depends on the buyer. If the buyer is willing to, take some chain, some bolt cutters with them, cut a link off the chain, stick their own lock on there, and go country, gate style the thing. There's 20 locks on there. Just put number 21 on there, and you got access. Some people are willing to do that. Some people, especially if they're from a bigger city, are really not willing to do that, and they think they're going to get shot and killed. I'm not saying it's legal and proper to do that, but that's countryside. That's country life. A lot of people do that. And or pack a lunch and camp out in front of the gate. Spend the day there. See if someone goes through the gate. And, play some music, hang out, have fun, whatever. Take a Frisbee or dog or something until somebody tries to get through. Make sure you park right in the way so they don't just go flying through there. And say, oh, sorry, I'll get out of your way, but I'm really trying to get access to look at the property for sale. And you start talking to locals, start meeting the locals, see if they run you off or see if they let you. And numerous times it's been the sheriff have let people through gates to go look at land. It's local ranchers let people, they'll take them out there personally. I've had people go buy locked gate property from me, and they camped out in front of the gate to figure out who's going through the gate. And a rancher goes through the gate, and the rancher's so happy to have somebody out there, they'll go blade them. They'll bring their big red tractor, their John Deere green and yellow polished fancy tractor they're really proud of over, and they'll blade them a driveway. And they'll fix the low spots in the road. Be like, oh, sorry, I meant to do that. I haven't done it since the last rainy season. And they'll fix the road out to your property for you. There's a lot of great people out behind locked gates that are used to that lifestyle, and they grew up with it, and they know it, and they love it, and they keep the city slickers out, hunting season or whenever. People don't come driving down the road without a need and a want, and they know everybody that's on that road. So you get to know them, and it's great once you get past the gate, but it's really hard to sell property from afar when it's behind a locked gate. So if you can avoid it, that'd be great. One of the ways to avoid it ahead of time is what we were talking about before, is sending somebody out there ahead of time to go inspect the property, take pictures, see if they can get there, that kind of thing. And then when you're looking at those pictures, if there's like for sale signs on the property, like for sale by owner, and it's been there for 20 years, just forget it. I cancel those deals right there. Or if you find them on the MLS or whatever, they've been up for sale forever, there's usually something wrong, or there's no market, you're missing something, move on. You see that in Street View, you see that in someone out there taking pictures of the property. Going back to the title side of it, tax sales. If you're buying the property from somebody who just bought it from a tax sale, lots of times you go back in the title history, they bought it from a tax sale, and the person that lost it to the taxes bought it from a tax sale. You see that 3-4 times in a row. Just those properties don't sell. They don't sell. They don't sell. They don't sell. They don't do it. Don't try it. Stay away from it. Something wrong. You're not seeing what's wrong, but something's wrong with that property. So I'm not doing that anymore. If someone bought it from a tax sale, I'm discounting that price so much that 99% everyone says no. So trees. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to try to answer some questions here. If you guys got questions, keep sticking them in there. I'm going to try to get them all in there. I'm going to give away some mailers at the end of this. I'm going to do a bunch more mailers today and tomorrow. I got to get piling on mailers, but I want to go through this list because this list means a lot to me doing these deals, and I think it can help some of you guys listening. Feel free to fast forward and rewind and stuff on the recorded version. So trees. In California, there's these oak trees, big, beautiful. Some of them have moss hanging from the branches and stuff. They look great. The pictures, oh yeah, they sell property, no problem. But you can't move that tree. You can't cut that tree down. These big old oaks in California, they're nasty protected. There's a family, they bought a 40-acre, I think it was Napa or Sonoma. Of course it's going to be Napa or Sonoma, but one of those counties, I think it was Sonoma County. About a 40-acre, and they want to put their house right where one of those trees was, and they had a bunch of those trees in the property. You got to move one or cut some down. And they said, oh, you can't cut it down because they're protected. And they said, okay, so we won't cut it down. We'll move it. And so they dug up like a 60-foot circle around a tree to get all the roots. And they had like multiple forklifts and cranes and everything trying to move this sucker, this monster tree. And they didn't move it very far. They just moved it over a little bit so they could put the house there. And then they replanted it. And someone took pictures of them doing this. I think they even got some YouTube videos, like it circulated on it in the local news and stuff. They moved the tree. Oh, they moved it. They didn't cut it down. They moved it. And if you go look it up, California oak lawsuits, they got sued for, I don't know who sued them, if it was a local Save the Tree hugger, or whoever. But they got a $900,000 fine for the tree, for one tree, $900,000. Yeah, so don't buy land with a big oak tree right in the middle of it where you want to build. Make sure you can cut them, move them, chop them, split them, burn them, whatever. Same thing with redwoods. Redwoods and some of the properties get protected. I've got some of the run into those if they're above, like, depends where, but the ones I was running into, I think it was above 16 inches. You had to get a permit to chop them down. Sonora Desert, like if you go out into Tucson area and stuff, you get these sweet looking saguaro cactuses. Same thing, those things are protected, so you got to plan your driveway around them. You got to build the house around them, build a C-shaped house with a cactus in the middle, whatever you build around them, because it costs a lot to move them. They're beautiful, but they're hard to move, and you gotta get permission. You gotta take care of them and stuff. So that's a good thing to keep in mind when you're buying land or any of these plants protected. Forestry land. Um, so I was just talking about one plant here and there. As we get more northwest, like Oregon, Washington, there's lobbyists that have gone for a long time about forestry land, and I've run into properties. I've got some properties that are like 300 acres. I'm like, oh, this thing looks beautiful. They accepted my offer. I'm like gonna start crying and dancing at the same time. The property looks so cool. I can't wait to make a video about it, show everybody this property I got. And I'm researching it. I'm calling the county, making sure I can build. And why is it so cheap? I'm like, the county says you can't put a house on there. You gotta, it's protected for forestry. Like, what do you mean I can't put a house? The zoning says one house per 380 acres or something. I got 381. They're like, yeah, but if you put a house on there, it's got to be within a quarter section of the nearest house. Like, what? They got like layer on layer on layer of laws to protect the forestry because they don't want housing prices to come in and run the price of the land up. The forestry guys, they're doing forestry in the area. They want to be able to buy land, cut trees, and keep cutting trees and running the sawmill and running the forestry industries in the area. So if everyone moves into the hills and builds houses and builds subdivisions and stuff, all the land that they use for forestry goes away and they get priced out of the market and they're out of business. So they've got all kinds of laws set up to protect themselves, to protect their business, and give the middle finger to us who want to come build houses on the land. So be very careful of that in like forestry areas. Because of that, when I mail stuff up there anymore, I don't target the forestry land anymore. That gets rid of a lot of that, but you really got to pay attention on the bigger acreage properties in the Pacific Northwest about restrictions on building house. And if it needs to be certain distances from other houses, there's different kinds of regulations in different parts of the area that are trying to slow down the growth. To note that, like other counties, like San Luis Obispo County, they got a quota on how many building permits they hand out a year. In some of the areas, it's like zero. They're trying to slow down growth. It's a different way they slow down growth. And so if you're trying to go plant a house or build a house, you got to make sure that where you're doing it and the land you're buying, just because you're buying the cheap land, make sure you can actually get a building permit. Like there's a quota to allow you to get a building permit. Like the zoning works. I check the zoning, everything. But then you go to apply and like, oh, our quota's out for the year. Try again next year. Yeah, good luck. You better be January 1st or else they're gone. Okay. Yeah, or some of the forestry land is grandfathered in. Some of it's grandfathered. You can still build. You got to check the intricacies of that. National forestry. So national forests, so different national forests have different regulations. You would think national forests across the U.S. would have similar regulations. Like I've got land next to Santa Luz National Forest in Northern California, and you can drive through that land. A lot of the forestry stuff is more acceptable to drive through where there's logging roads. Like this trail behind me looks a lot like a logging road, right? Like somebody once upon a time cut trees and they built a road like this on the hill so they could get the trees in and out. That's a logging road. It's not an official road, but you could probably drive that to access lots of different properties. If this was in a national forest, if that was in Santa Luz National Forest and lots of other national forests, you can drive the logging road, like without permission, you can drive them. But go check that specific national forest, see if you can use it for accessing the property, and then see if that access in that county works to get a building permit to actually build on the property. So lots of times it doesn't count as legal access up to code to build. Like you can't get a fire truck or an ambulance down that thing, so it doesn't work. It's got to be built up to their standards. So you gotta check some of that. Now, if your national forest like petrified national forest where there's funky rocks on the ground that used to be trees, they don't want you driving on that ground. And I've had properties next to petrified national forest and chunks of land circled by a petrified national forest that are neighborhoods, and the national forest has basically said, no, you can't drive across our land to get to those properties. It's like, what? No wonder they're so cheap. How do you get there? Like helicopter. Good luck. You can walk, you can hike, you can camp there. You can't use a wheeled vehicle across the Petrified National Forest to get there. Careful buying those properties. So check with the national forest about access, depending on which national forest it is. It's not always logical. Ask. Other national forest, um, Tahoe National Forest. I have properties up there. I didn't actually buy them. And it was gonna close, and then the seller backed out last minute. But I had some in Tahoe National Forest up the hill from Lake Tahoe that were like um, snowmobile access only, and the snow stuck around till late August. 'Cause it's so high up the hill. But it looked beautiful. There's little lakes and streams and trees, and it looked like a sweet place to build a cabin. And the price seemed too good to be true, and I was going to pull it off. It just didn't all the way close. But that was one national forest you could snowmobile in, or you could horseback ride in, but you can't use wheeled vehicles. Okay, so then on to rivers and other water accesses. I had some property on the Colorado River. It's a sweet looking property. It's like 20 acres if I remember right. And the only way you could get there logically was to take a boat and through the river and get to the property because it was on the coast. It was just like right there. But Department of everything, Department of Fish and Game, Department of just a lot of national. I forget all the bureaucracies. This was 3 years ago or something. I was working on this deal. They said you need this permit, you need that permit, you need all these other permits to legally go access your property from the river because you're not supposed to like go from the river to these properties. But I'm like, it's all national forest land along. It's all like government land except for this one little patch that's my property on the river. Like this is primo land, and but you can't access it even if you're going through the river. I'm like, I can't take a barge of like building supplies to the property and build. And a guy that bought it, he flew in there with a helicopter, and he was going to do it helicopter style. But that was a discouraging property for a long time. I led to lower the price, I don't know, 20 times before somebody actually bought it. So that water access wasn't actually water access. And crossing water to get to the properties, lots of times a bridge. Some of the recent ones just ran into, you got to have like fire standard bridge. You see the neighbors that got like walking bridge, but if you build fire standard bridge, so like a fire truck can get through it bridge, it's different state regulations to cross the water. This is California, and takes more time and more money than a pedestrian bridge like the neighbors. So neighbors did it grandfathered style. And to do a new build, it's going to be a lot more. So yeah, how much access do you need across the water? Do like fire trucks, ambulances need to get there? Is it just supplies, or is this going to be an official build or banking involved? There's lots of those questions when it comes to crossing water and sizable amounts of water to get to land. So water access is, for the beginner, I think should be highly avoided. Let's talk about water use on the property, drinking water. To get a building permit, lots of places you need to prove that you've got water or access to water, especially in the Southwest where there's water shortages. And some counties will let you do water delivery, and some neighborhoods will let you do water delivery. Some neighborhoods won't. Some counties won't. Some states get weird about it. Some states like Arizona are much more open for water delivery. Colorado gets a lot weirder about water rights than others. And can you do rainwater catchment systems? California is opening up a lot more to rainwater catchment systems. Like San Diego County here, where I'm at, they're starting to require new builds have rainwater catchment systems incorporated into them. It doesn't have to be the full system, but the hookups for the systems, like in the wall stuff, has to be there. And the utilities, plumbing, infrastructure, whatever you want to call it, has to be there on the new builds for rainwater collection systems, which I think is neat. I don't like the added cost of making people do something, but I like the idea of incorporating more rainwater collection into the build. I think if you're building a house, you should be looking seriously at rainwater collection and the aspects of that, even if it's just for doing laundry or watering the plants and stuff. But yeah, okay. So the permits, can you get a building permit with what kind of water you plan on doing on the property? That's a key question that I think a lot of people get tripped up on. Another one is, okay, if I'm relying on a well, what's the depth of water in the area? So if you go, Arizona's got a really easy website. You can look up wells all over the area. It's like a statewide website. In California, it's more county by county, looking at water depths in the areas that you're looking at to figure out how much it's going to cost to drill a well. So it's good to know kind of what the depths are in the area before you go drill a well, and call around in that area and see what kind of drilling conditions it is, what the cost of drilling in that area is. Is it how much per foot? And then you're looking at what kind of depth, and you're figuring out a neighborhood of what you're going to be paying for a well if you're going to have to get a water well installed before you can get a building permit. Okay, and I was talking about elevation with the snowmobile access only property. You got to check the elevation of these properties. Sometimes they're way up there, and the snow sticks around till forever. That's a different valuation of property. It's just different. And then we're talking about road setbacks in the past. So setbacks from the road, setbacks from the sides, setbacks. You might say, I own all this land, but then a lot of it can't be used because you can't build too close to the boundary of your property. And knowing those boundaries can help you figure out what part of the property you can build on, and if that part of the property to build on makes sense with the hills and the plants and the view and everything. So that's just another piece of the pie. Another one that I've run into is driveway angle. A lot of people scratch their head. What do you mean by driveway angle? So let's just use this title. Let's say that land lessons learned is the road. We're trying to get out to the road, and our driveway goes this way and it meets the road. So when you drive up the driveway, you can look both ways and you can look for traffic, and it's cool. But if the driveway is like this, for example, and you're driving up the road, you're driving up your driveway, and you get to the edge, it's really hard to go look back this way for traffic. It's easier to look this way. You're kind of looking through a blind spot in your car to figure out the traffic. And if the topography of the land, or the water on the land, or the layout of the land, or whatever, requires that your driveway is one of these cockamamie things coming up to the road, you might want to rethink what you're buying, because some counties won't give you a building permit when the angle of that your driveway to the road is this, but they will give you one here. Here's always okay. But like these things, lots of counties don't like them. It's a safety issue. There's more accidents, and there's nastier accidents on those kinds of intersections, and they want to get rid of those intersections. They don't want to make more of those intersections going forward. So if the county has any spit, they'll keep you from doing that. A lot of people don't think about that. So it's talking about fire access for ambulance, fire trucks. Let's answer some questions, and I'll come back to my list. I'm like halfway through my list. It's taking a little bit longer than I thought. It's a long list. I've learned a lot of lessons doing this. The Ringo Starr says, the HOA police, release the first name SAP. Yeah. Adam McSill says, love this shirt, Luke. Thanks. I've probably worn this on the show numerous times. I don't have that many shirts. Just keep circling them. It's comfortable, right? And then he was asking about the land in Baxter. I'm gonna look up your specific Baxter land and get you an update. EOWawa1, home on the HOA where the deer and the raccoons do roam. Exactly. I want to place 5 acres or more where I can put in a well and go in when I want with a tiny house or RV. Yeah. If you want to do a tiny house and a well, like a good place for that would be Costilla County, Colorado. There's a bunch of those properties on the website right now. They're like 5-acre ones. Cochise County, Arizona is a good place to do that. Got some of those on the website really, really well right now. You can do RV or tiny home. I don't know how many we have right now, but we've had a bunch in the past. In Apache County, Arizona would be good. A lot of like Elko County, Nevada would be good for that. I'm sure there's others on the website I'm not thinking of, but those are the ones off the top of my head. You get that kind of acreage for not much money. You can do that on. The RV might be shorter term. You can do like 6 months at a time in Costilla County, but Kurt Butterfield, grandfathered in. Yeah, so I think this was when I was talking about the forestry land in like Washington and Oregon. So sometimes if you buy a big acreage property, and the laws were created in like the 80s, for example, or the 90s, they created these laws that said, if you want to build a home on this property, you have to be within a mile of the nearest home that's already built, or you need to be within a section of the nearest home that's already built. A section is like 1 mile square. If you take a 1 mile square and you pivot it on the exact center of your property, and you spin that square around, like, oh, I found 3 homes in that square. Okay, then you can build a new home on your property. But if you can only get 2 homes to fit in that square, then you can't build a home on your property. And unless it's grandfathered in. I've run into this exact scenario. So the person that's selling the property to me owned it before the law was created. So if they own the property before the law was created, they could build a home on the property, but I can't. So I would have to do some kind of creative contract where they're building the home and then I buy the home from them. Or they get the building permit and then I run with it and go build from there. Or some kind of transitional transaction in there to get around the rules. So if you know that ahead of time before you go buy the property, it could be very good to know, because you could actually build a home on it. Whereas if you buy it and you just killed the grandfathered clause of it because you bought it, now it doesn't transfer, you're in trouble. You got to go build a house next door in the neighbor's land to get it to get the progression of new houses close enough to yours that you can get yours to build. Yeah, grandfathered in. Angela says, if you like the video, please hit that thumbs up. Yeah, thanks, Scott. Thanks, Angela. Hit the thumbs up. That'd be cool. Video gets circulated more. Guys, doing some thumbs up. Land wrangler, Schedule B exemptions. Anything you're getting title insurance for. Yeah, exactly. All the stuff you're getting title insurance for, that's basically exempt in your title insurance. So would I put an offer in and then check for HOA? What happens if they accept offer and then I don't want it? Do I have to pay someone some type of fee? There's a good question. So, I get offers a lot from realtors that write up these really convoluted, detailed offers, and they could just pick up the phone and ask me, like, hey, Luke, are you willing to sell the property for this price? And a lot of realtors do that instead of writing up all the paperwork. But if you put it into the paperwork, you could say contingent upon there being no HOA. And I see that in a lot of different paperwork. I say, yeah, there's no HOA that I know of, and we'll have title do their check and make sure. And we all sign off there's no HOA that we know of, and then the deal closes. So you could put some clause in there that says contingent upon, no HOA, or the HOA fee being less than, or I'm able to build this, or I'm able to do that, or whatever. You could put the onus on the seller. Hopefully you don't do that to me all the time, but just ask and I'll try to answer that. But if you're buying from somebody else, you could put the onus on them. A lot of buyers do that. EOWAWA1, Seth that already tips through. Yeah, good guy. Yeah, I like his stuff too. Just Ali, check out. Okay, so we're looking at that same county, Missouri County. Why can't you go to county tax office and put address in to see who owns it? What the taxes are, if they are late, lots of info. Yeah, you can do that. So if you're local, it's usually easier. Lots of times you can get them on the phone. Some of these counties got it on the website. Like if you go to Elko County, Nevada, they got all the deeds on the website. So you can type in, the APN number of the land, or the address, or the owner's name, or whatever you got to locate that land. And it'll show you what the last deed is. That doesn't mean that's the owner. It's just that's the last recorded deed. What lots of people will do, not lots, but what some people will do, well, that guy might have sold it on terms to somebody else, and they might be making payments to him. That'd be one reason that the name on there is not the actual person that really owns it right now. Another thing that they might do is they might sell it to their kids, or they might sell it to a neighbor. They might sell it to somebody else. They do the deed, they do the paperwork, they hand it all over to them. They expect the buyer to go get it recorded. And I've seen deeds like this where they bought it from a land dealer, and 5 years later, the land dealer sells it to somebody else. And then the person that bought it never got it recorded. And the land dealer probably got sick of the tax bills continuously coming to him. I don't know if they could get the contact with the person they sold it to or not. They're probably wondering what the heck. Person never got it recorded into their name. I go sell it to somebody else. This is not me doing this. This is other land dealers I've seen doing this in properties I'm doing due diligence on. And then they sell it to somebody else who gets it recorded, and then the person who bought it 5 years previous gets it recorded later. Like a year or two later, they'll get it recorded. It might be 7, 8, 9 years after they bought it. They go get their deed recorded. Is that a good deed? Who owns the land? Trick question, right? It's not about the recording. It's about when somebody signed that deed. It's the timeline of when that grantor, the person selling the land, signed the deed. So the person that signed the deed way back in time, that bought the land, it's theirs. It doesn't matter what all the 15 other deeds beyond them are. The other people that didn't own it, sold it. It's not their land to sell. They're creating I don't know if it's felony, but some kind of error at least. They're doing something wrong by selling it again and again, or selling it again and someone else selling it and them reselling it, or whatever they do from there. So you can't just look at the tax record and say, oh, that's who owns the land. Probably that's who owns the land. That's not always true. Okay, another thing to look at is utility fees. Like, how much does it cost to hook up utilities? I've found properties that are like, okay, the water's there, the power's there, the sewer's there, I can get the thing pretty cheap, and it all makes sense. And it's like, oh wow, these economics are looking great. But I didn't check how much it costs, how much it actually costs to hook up to utilities, to the water, power, sewer, and it's like way more than other properties in the area. And I'm looking at the valuation of other properties in the area to make my decision on how much I'm paying for the property. And you start cooking that in there, and it's like, I made a mistake. I paid too much for the land. So that's another good thing to check. Not only that it has utilities, if that's the kind of land you're looking for, but how much does it cost to hook up to those utilities? And is there capacity in those utilities to actually hook up to? Could I put a new house on that sewer line, or is that sewer line tapped out? They aren't doing it anymore. Is that power line tapped out? They're not doing it anymore. Is that water line tapped out? They're not doing it anymore. They might not have built enough infrastructure there to support all the lots that they have. It would make sense if they did, but they don't always. And you should, if you're really doing this, you should check. Another one I got burned on is deals with the state to get the water. And then the access to the water, because it's like 3 parties gone, gets harder and harder and harder. You got to get permission for more people to actually get access to the water to build something. And so I've been held back by that. Like, you don't get any more water permits or water connections or water allocations or whatever they call them. So not only is there water available there, but can I get my hands on some? And in some areas, that's a big battle. Moving on to the next point. So when doing splits, when splitting properties, when you don't have good descriptions of the actual size of the property to go off of, like I split some properties, and this has been in the past. I split some properties, and the standard size that acreage is what I went off of, when the actual size of that acreage was different. It was a weird shaped one. Because of whatever. I mean, there's always different curvatures of the earth and things that it's a little bit weird, but this particular one I'm thinking of was a lot weird. And so I deeded off different sections of it, thinking I'm deeding off like 4 acres when I was deeding off more like 5 acres. And so it didn't leave like a whole lot of much land left for the last lot that I was deeding off. And by the time I got to the last lot, I deeded off, and the county got back to me and pointed out their database has got a lot more accurate since I started doing that. And now they have a lot better data that I can get my hands on and see going forward. So it's not going to happen in the future for that particular county. But this particular lot that I created was like 1.3 acres or something, when they're supposed to be 4 acres to meet zoning. So the bigger ones I made are fine. The people I sold the properties to got bigger acreage than I depicted, and they worked out fine. But the last lot came in really small. And I can't really legally use that lot. Nobody could build on it and stuff. So I gave it to the person next door that I'd sold land to, deeded over to him. It's a lesson learned. Get accurate measurements of the property before you split it up, before you're describing the splits. Deed restrictions. Get into the next note. Deed restrictions. I bought some land in Chilele Land Grant in New Mexico. New Mexico's got some funky land grants. And I was like, oh, I buy it and it's so cheap. This is crazy cheap compared to the area. It should be easy to sell it for a quarter of what the market's going for, still make money. You sell it for half the market, make a lot of money. Yeah, well, I didn't realize that land grant had all kinds of history behind it. And this deed restrictions, somebody gave the Mexican government or the Spanish government, like way back when, gave the land to the people that were living there that were poor and they were squatting on the land. They gave it to them, but they gave it to them with restrictions. You can't ever sell it to people that are not local or in your family. So they got to be part of this land grant or in your family, or else you can't sell it to them. That probably made sense at the time, like 200, 300 years ago, but now you just got the land and it's like, I'm going to sell it to somebody else that lives right around here's family. And so I bought some of it and I don't live there and I'm not family. And it's like, I can't do anything with it. There's a bunch of court cases and everything. I finally figured out that you could, but it was unconstitutional deed restriction, but there's still deed restrictions on properties like that. Other ones I've run into, like an example I was using before is no non-family can use that easement for that particular property. Or another one that went to a church and I bought it from the church. I didn't actually buy it from the church. I was gonna, but then I found the deed restrictions and I didn't buy it. It was no development without permission from, the people that gave it to the church. So people gave the land to the church, but they basically made it so nobody can use the land without their permission. So they just given away all the land next to them. They don't have to keep paying tax on it that way, right? Just make the church pay the tax on it. I think a lot of people think the church can hold land without paying tax, but they can't unless their actual church is there. I mean, sometimes you see churches paying tax on their parking lot. Like, that doesn't even count as the land that their church is on. Yeah, so sometimes somebody deeded land in the past and it says only this can be built or only that can be done. And so it can be in the deed history of what it is. I think a good example of that is in Arizona is a open range state. So a lot of the land has been deeded with cattle restrictions, so people can run their cattle on the land until you build a fence. And they do that a lot in Nevada too. So you got to build a fence up to their standards to keep the cattle out. I mean, there's those kinds of deed restrictions to know about when you're buying specific kinds of properties. I'm going to try to answer some more questions. I'm going to keep going down the list. This is getting to be a long video, but I want to get through this, what's on my mind. His dog signed it. Oops. Do you have a video that explains how you find properties? Yeah, I got lots of videos on how to find properties. If you go back in my video history, it's like mailers. If you look up mailers, like we send out a lot of mail to find properties. Adam Mixel saying, Luke, if you could give me a call on the issues on properties in Baxter County. Cheryl that works with you doesn't seem to know what I'm talking about. Okay, so Adam, I'm going to follow up with you. I got a note here. I'm going to follow up with you after this call. John, if we want to check out a property you own, do we need to let you know beforehand in case there's an issue with neighbors or police? No, just go look at the properties. Go look at the properties. I got properties all over the place. People are looking at them all the time. Just go look at the properties. Feel free to walk. I usually tell people to go camp on them if you want. Don't leave trash. Check and make sure they're still for sale on the website. Just be cognizant. These are still up for sale. I'm trying to sell these properties. Don't go like cut trees down and stuff, but go look at them. Don't hurt yourself. Look at them, have fun, have a picnic, see if it's the right property for you. And just go check it out. Luke, please post your list on your website. Great list to work from. Yeah, I'll get it on there eventually. I'm going to cook it down. This list is longer than a pre-flight check on grounded. Yeah. This is where I'm getting stuck in due diligence, these bigger dollar properties. There's a lot of stuff to look at and research on these properties. But it's lots of good info. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Angela, I do. Donate and call the shots forever. Yeah, even after you die. Like, how are we supposed to go get permission from a dead person on if we can build something there? Um, Take a copy of a screenshot of property with you just to show. Yeah, that's good. It's good to take some stuff off the website to go show it to them, or person comes out and starts yelling at you and saying, oh, this is the wrong make sure you're on the right property first. Let's say this is for sale on ruralvacantland.com. Feel free to call Luke and whoever answers the phone over there. Even if it's a sheriff. I mean, I've talked to tons and tons of sheriffs. They might even know me already, about touring properties, or my letters. I get my letters, and sheriff calls about my letters, and sheriff calls about people out looking at my land. It's a good hometown sheriff thing to do, right? They should be watching out for people in their county and what's going on. And if you're not from there, they should be checking you out, either helping you. Lots of them help you. You'd be surprised. They'll help you, give you directions. They'll tell you where utilities are. They'll tell you who the neighbors are. They'll tell you the history. They'll tell you stuff like, oh, don't buy that property. It's got the... Hopefully they don't tell you not to buy my properties, but sometimes they do for whatever reason. My brother's uncle's cousin, the local story. This is where the robbers hid their treasure. This is where Bonnie and Clyde got shot. I don't know, whatever the story is, right? So next, on to floodplain zones and ways. So I covered this a little bit in a previous video, but I've been sending a lot of mail out in Washington, state of Washington, around the Puget Sound area, and I've been doing a lot of research and especially spending time on floodplains, flood zones, floodways, what constitutes no build zone versus I want to be close to the creek and the water because I love the view and I love being next to water, but what are the setbacks and what can I build in? So there's a lot of that I'm still working through that I'm not an expert on enough to really explain so much yet. We were talking about setbacks before. When you get a pie-shaped property, setbacks can be hugely detrimental on the front and the sides, and you get different setbacks from creeks, washes, roads, and fire access. I had a property recently, a buyer found out that, I think it's off the website, he's still buying it, but there's the county created, or the fire marshal, not even the county, the fire marshal is requesting a 30-foot right of way and the sides of the properties, all the sides of the properties throughout the whole county, 30 foot. Like, county setback might be 5 foot. You're all of a sudden requesting 30 foot. Like, I understand you had some fires and you want better access to fight the fires, but we're talking about woods. Like, you're gonna drive your fire truck through my woods to fire access, setbacks, easements. Sometimes easements cover too much of the land. Lots of times I get these vacant properties people will try to sell to me, and I look at it, it's like, what are these stripes going across? I'm looking at satellite pictures, right? There's a big stripe going across the land. There's a bunch of stripes. There's some towers. You zoom in, you start seeing some big power line towers. A power company's got an easement through there, or at least a right of way. You can't build stuff where those power lines are, and you probably got setbacks from them. You probably don't want to build right underneath the big power line. Make your hair stand up, Who knows what it does to the long-term health of your body and your kids and your garden and your pets and everything else. Or it might be, I looked at a property that my wife wanted to have a horse riding facility on, and there was a water line that goes through the property. One of those big ones. It's like 4-foot aqueduct thing, like huge. And it was, because it was part of a hill, it was something like 25 or 30 feet underground. And so the local water company had an easement for this pipe to go through the property, and they say you can't build anything on top of it. And so we talked to them, and we found you could put a fence across it for the horses, but if they come through and they got to dig it up or whatever, they're going to bust your fence and you got to pay for it. So if you want to put it back, and you might be out of business while they're fixing the pipe for a long time. And that easement killed the use of the property. We were looking at putting a big horse arena with horse facilities to run horse business on it. It's a great location, views, everything looked perfect about it, but it's you can't really have a stable business on top of something like that, and it just didn't work. So that was an easement that killed that particular property. But there's also gas lines, there's oil lines, There's access easements to other properties. There's animal thoroughfare kinds of easements sometimes nature people have put together for bear crossings and deer crossings and all kinds of animal stuff. You got to look for easements and see what kind of easements crisscrossing, killing it. In the mining business I was in the past, Phelps Dodge, like an old American mining company, that was their key number one strategy. They would find a deposit and they would just keep an easement across, like right through the middle of it, a water easement or something. And that way they could sell the property, they could sell it, they wouldn't have to pay tax on it. And nobody can come in and build the deposit because they've got an easement, 5-foot wide strip of stupidity right through the middle of it. They say, oh, you want to build it, you got to pay us, got to pay, That was like part of their strategy to keep mineral deposits uneconomic looking ones at the time, so they didn't build them. But maybe in the future, higher mineral prices or better technology, they could go build them. So they just sit on the easement and kill it. So they've got generations of easements in there. They got bought out by, I don't know if you know who Phelps Dodge got bought out by. Put it in the comments. They got bought out, and then someone else bought them out. I think it turned out to be a Brazilian big one. I might have it wrong, but okay. Another title thing that I came up with was title. If you go back in the title history of a property and you're looking at, remember that screen I pulled up before? I think the screen's still on there. We had the software up and we had all these different deeds and mortgages and stuff in the title history of this property that's in San Diego somewhere. Now, if a bunch of these were tax default and tax sale, and you see the history of it, like it's being sold off for taxes and it's a treasury deed, like the county's selling it for back taxes. If you see that happening again and again and again, that's usually a lemon of a property you don't want to get involved in. If you're buying it for personal use, there's something you're probably missing about this property that other people are running into. Like one of these things on the list I'm talking about, or something else that I never covered, that you never thought of, nobody thought of. That's why they keep buying it. They keep finding out what the problem is later. Not paying the taxes, and it keeps going back again and again. There's lots of those properties that keep going back for taxes again and again and again. Don't buy that property. Just don't do it. Now, if it went back like once and you got it priced in there, you still got to think about getting insurance on it. Lots of times you can't get insurance on them if they're just fresh out of the tax land to build on it, but it still works in one way or another. There's usually a way to pull it off. I can usually get it around it if you really want the property and stuff, or if I really want it. And if there's the other side of that is if there's too many owners. So if the property traded hands like 25 times in the last 3 years or something, and a bunch of those trades are like between mom and pop and mom and pop and mom and pop and mom and pop, and they're not title company, and you try to do it through a title company, the title company is going to make you go back and get affidavits of uninsured deed from all those previous transactions for the last 3 years or 5 years or 7 years or 10 years, depending on what title company you're talking to. That's a lot of signatures, a lot of paperwork to collect, and a lot of things to go wrong in your transaction. So if you're buying properties and you see a title history like that, when you got a whole bunch of transactions, oftentimes it's a red flag, and it means the deal's not going to close. I mean, it's a lot less likely to close. Okay, so buying land across county lines. I've done this a couple times. Some guy owns land, or family owns land or whatever. Some of it's in one county, some of it's in the next. I had one in 3 counties one time. Same property spread across 3 counties. And it sounds easy enough. You just do 3 deeds. You just buy it from 3 different counties. You pay the taxes in 3 different counties. Sounds straight to the point, right? But as you get into bigger dollar ones and you start doing it through a title company, the title company will usually charge you for a totally different transaction in each county. Now, maybe you guys know better title companies than I do, but I usually shop around, and yeah, like your title costs just multiply. Like the bureaucracy, paperwork, and the costs multiply when you're buying land across counties. You got to price it in. So as a land buyer, I price that in. If someone wants to sell me land across multiple counties, price going down. Terms. I've said this on the show numerous times. I've sold a lot of properties on terms. At one time in the past, I had close to 300 properties sold on terms, people making payments. That's a lot of payments to keep track of. It's like multiple payments coming in every day. And trying to keep track of them is really hard to do. And trying to keep everybody on time and everything is really hard to do. And over time, the default rate of the payments that are like the same size, like your down payment is the same size as the payment over time. $500 down, $500 a month, $100 down, $100 a month. Those kinds of payments is what I'm talking about. Not like 50% down and then 10% a month for 5 months. Like those ones usually pay off. But same payment per month over time. Over the last kind of 2 years, my average is about 50% of those people stop making their payments by month number 3. 50%, that's half of them are gone by month number 3. So if you're a budding land dealer and you want to go sell stuff on terms, I'm sure you can sell stuff on terms, but some people look at that as a business strategy and they play those odds and keep doing that over and over. And the more terms they collect over and over, the more money they make over the long run. But to me, that's not a business strategy. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of false advertising. It's just not right. Like someone is out there wanting to buy the land, they should buy the land. If they want to change to some other land, I try to get them into some other land, but just don't disappear and just vanish. Like I'm always scratching my head. Did the guy go to jail or what happened? I can't get a hold of him. It's like you put money into this land. Where'd you go? After a certain amount of time, I go sell it again. They're gone. Like sell it to somebody else. I try to sell it for cash. I don't want to sell it for terms anymore. People stop making payments. So 50% by month number 3. That's my experience. Maybe you guys are better at it than I am, but that's my experience. Another one I've run into is airport noise. I sold property I didn't realize it's by airport on Cochise County. Guy called up. He went out, checked it out, looked at it, did all the due diligence, everything, loved it, moved in. And then school season started and the airport started flying lessons, to teach people how to fly. Like every 10 minutes or something. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Right over, I shouldn't laugh. Right over his house, and his place is like right at the end of the freeway or into the runway that wasn't being used at all until school season started, and then just like zing. And he got really pissed, and he's calling the FAA, he's calling the school, everybody, trying to make some solution. And it's like, good idea to go look for noise stuff in the area. It doesn't have to be an airport, but whatever. Like, take a good 3D view of what's happening in the area. It might be farming, like they might plow the fields a certain time of the year, make a lot of dust or a lot of noise for grinding up, whatever it is. Still going down the list, septic size requirements. So I get into properties sometimes where the properties aren't big enough to put a septic into them, and you need the property next door to like put them together for classic septic. A lot of people say those aren't buildable. Or you need a much more higher efficiency septic system that costs more money, and more people buying those cheap properties don't usually want to do the more expensive septic system. So it's a good idea of checking if the properties are big enough to put septic in for the area. See if other people are doing it recently, not just 10 years ago, but like in the last year or two. If they're doing it, probably still works. Got a couple more to go through. Let's see if I'm missing something in the comments. And 5 foot wide strip of stupidity. Yeah, exactly right. How important is it to make sure you have mineral rights on land? This is John Bursa asking a good question again. John's got a lot of good questions in this one. How important is it to make sure you have mineral rights on land? So my background is from financing mining and oil and gas and other kinds of natural resource properties, right? And so some of the companies that I used to finance and be heavily invested into were mineral royalty companies. And they would either buy up the mineral rights to properties or royalties on properties. And for example, let's say I own a piece of land in Texas where there's oil. And it's not developed yet, but Grandpa gave me land or something. Grandpa got it from his grandpa, and He got it from the federal government. It's kept in the family. No one ever did any fishy stuff. I might probably, most likely, have the mineral rights to that property. And since we're in Texas, a nice oil basin, there's probably something down there. And technology comes along. They finally have the technology to see, there's something down there, and somebody's willing to bet enough money that there's something down there to go drill some holes. And so entrepreneur comes over to my property and says, mister, we think there's oil below your property, or gas, or whatever they want to go look for. And we're willing to put up the money to drill holes and see. And if there is, we're willing to give you part of what we find. And we're used to paying, 2.5%, 3.5%, and it'll be a royalty. Like, you don't have to put up you don't have to put up any money. You just grant us the right to go work on it. We'll put up all the money. We'll do all the work. If we find something, we'll give you 2 or 3, whatever, 5%, whatever percent they haggle out. And that'll be our right to use the property. They don't find anything, they move on. You don't get squat. They find something big, you might get a lot of money. And you might get a lot of money on a continuing basis going over time. That could be awesome. So if you're in that business and you want to collect royalties like that, and you think there's minerals in the property, and you think your property is big enough for an economic mining operation or oil and gas operation and stuff, you should be researching those minerals and seeing if they're there. Now, if we're in Arizona and it's like a hard rock area and it's nobody's drilling for oil anywhere around the area, do you really care if you got oil rights? I mean, you probably care more about silver and copper and gold, or something that might be in the hard rock geology under your property. You might care more about some mineral that technology hasn't started using yet that they might in the future, and prices might take off. You might care about the exotics, but chances are a lot of that land was not transferred from the federal government to grandpa, son down to you. It was probably transferred from, if it was from the federal government, it probably transferred to like one of these companies that I used to finance, and they would buy a property, they'd strip the mineral rights off of it, and they'd sell the property, or they would buy those mineral rights from someone else who already did that. Grandpa was a land trader. He bought 500 properties in his lifetime, and he sold them all, and he kept the mineral rights of all of them, right? They go to grandpa and say, I want to buy all the mineral rights from all your properties, and I'll give you $100,000 or some chunk of money. You sell them all. Or they buy them from grandma, who inherited them from grandpa and has no idea what's going on. They collect a lot of that and looking for the big payday somewhere, someday, somehow off of those. It'd be 1/10 of 1%, pay something huge. It'd be some really big economic mining operation or oil and gas operation to make a killing off of that one little bit. And the rest of it's just lawyer land. A lot of those companies have like one geologist and 5 to 10 lawyers, because tracking them sucks and enforcing them sucks. It's policing them is what you're doing, and when you have those mineral rights. And so if you're the landowner and you understand that a little bit more, I think you care a lot less. Like, you could go produce hundreds of millions of dollars of minerals off of a property and never tell anyone in the history that might own the mineral rights of that property. It's not like you're going to go out looking for them and telling them, right? But they might come around someday, 5, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years down the way. Some lawyer gets cheeky about it, research and paperwork, or technology gets better, and they can figure that out a lot better, the genealogy of the ownership of these things. And they'll come back and start asking for money. Like, it happens to the biggest mining companies, the biggest oil and gas companies. They develop these projects, a couple $100 million projects, and they still don't get it figured out who owns the mineral rights to that property. Because a lot of it, like we were talking about before, it's like a contract in some good old boy's desk somewhere, waiting for the grandkids to dig out and understand and go cash in. It's not recorded. It's not anywhere that somebody can find. So you hire the best lawyer in the land to go figure out the mineral rights to your property. They'll just give you an opinion. They won't tell you have it. They'll tell you, we think that you have it based on this research and that research and all the stuff that we checked. We think you got it, or we think you don't. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but that's my background feel. I don't care about the mineral rights. That's not the business I'm in. If I'm going to go after mineral rights, I'm going to go after ones that look economic, and I think they're going to be not the properties I want to build a house on. Red flag RE, land warning list. There you go. Red flag real estate buy-in list. Love and Ivy Farm. If you don't have, or if someone is selling land but holds the mineral rights, they own those minerals, not you, and possible easements can reduce the amount of usable acreage you are paying for. Exactly. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. These are lots of things to look for when you go to buy land. We're at like 2.5 hours into this call, so I understand this is a lot of stuff to go through, but you could write down, you could take notes through this. If you're really buying land, I think this is a list of stuff that you should go through. And it's cost me a lot of money to come up with this list. Lots and lots of money that you could save by just listening. So John Bursa says, so if it doesn't specify you don't have the rights, does that mean you do? No, John, it doesn't. Even if it says on the deed that the mineral rights are included, that doesn't mean that you have them. So how do you know? You don't. You get a really good opinion from a highly trained lawyer in the topic. I could probably check the same stuff they do and give you my opinion because I've been through it so many times. I probably bought and sold more properties than most any of the lawyers that research these things. My opinion might count, but I'm not going to tell you for sure if you have them or not, because that's not the way the system works. Loving Ivy Farm. Just from what I have learned so far, if it is not specific in contract, then it's all yours. Yeah, that's not true. The way the mineral resources work, I mean, it's not true. Like the way law happens in the U.S., feel free to correct me and put comments and stuff in there. My understanding is, I'm going to put the clause in there. My understanding of the way the law works in the U.S. is that it's based on English common law. And in English common law, as opposed to Napoleonic code, there's the two sets, the main laws used in the world, Napoleonic and English. And English has a stack of precedences. So as things happen, people make up rules or they make up a solution. The judge comes up with, okay, because we got into this problem, here's how we're going to solve it. Boom. They keep it in writing. They strike it into history forever. And then, another court case happens and we learn from the old court cases. We make judgments off the old court cases and we solve another court case and we solve another and another and another. And so we end up with this pile of precedences. And that comes up with the way the laws are and the way things are and the way things happen is based on all this precedence from the past. It's not from English precedents, from American precedents, and American in your state, in your county, your jurisdiction, whatever, right? That precedence. Now, the same idea holds true when it comes to land ownership. So a lot of the land ownership in the U.S. comes from the federal government. It's a patented deed. And you can look up the patented deeds if you go to the General Land Office part of the website under Bureau of Land Management. So if you Google General Land Office, GLO.gov or something, GLO, General Land Office, there's a search. You can search by name, grantor, grantee. You can search by times. You can search by areas. You can search by... I'm not sure they have assessor parcel number, but township range, section, kinds of legal descriptions of the properties. You can search by that and you can find where the property was transferred from the federal government to private industry, private owner. It was homesteaded off or whatever. And then from there, the counties are supposed to keep records of all the transactions that happen from there to present. So you can go to the county record, county recorder's office or county clerk's office, either through the internet in lots of cases or in person or over the phone. You can order it, you can request it. You can hire somebody else to go get the copies for you, which might be easier if you've never done it before. And you can get the whole history of that property going from the federal government to whoever you're buying it from now. And you can look at that history and you can see if there's anything that's happened in the history of that property that somebody keeps the mineral rights, the oil rights, the easement rights, the access this way, that way, use of the creek, they can let their cows water in your pond, all this stuff that might not apply anymore, but it's still there. It's written down. It's history of the property. Somebody might want to use that for some extraneous use in the future someday. You should know about it. You can go see all that stuff. That's the recorded history. And then there's the unrecorded history of these things. People in the past, they make handshake agreements. They write down contracts. The contracts didn't have to be recorded to be legal. How do we research that? How do we find all those contracts? How do we know about them? We don't. We could try, we look, we ask, we'd search, that kind of thing, but they can come forward later, like generations later, and say, my great, 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 whoever, may have had this contract, and now it's passed down to me, and because of all this probate stuff, it's mine, and I want to enforce this contract on the new owner. So that's why it's not definitive. Angela, I grew up next to an airport, found it hard to sleep after I moved. Yeah, some people don't mind it, love it, and there's always someone for it. John says, I've heard the same thing. I grew up with the railroad in my far, far backyard. Yeah, I've been living next to a railroad for a while. I get used to it. And now I lost my spot in the comments. Let's see. Here we go. Yeah, I finally moved next to a railroad track. Flooded me out in 20. I always like Johnny Cash train songs. Here we go. Let's see if I can find some question. John Bursa again. One thing I really like that you do is that you will tell us how far it is to a hospital, groceries and shopping. Yeah, I like that too. I think that helps a lot of people. I.e. Walmart, Target. Please continue to do that. Nice to know about utilities too. Yeah, I think it really helps to say how far things are away from like a hospital, like John was saying. Get some of these properties, they're like an hour and a half from a hospital. And somebody calls me who's like 90 years old to buy the property and they want to live an hour and a half from a hospital. I'm not going to tell them no, but like, you just some common sense here. You might want to have an easier time of getting to the hospital, I don't think they want to hear that, but if I stick it in the ad, it's a lot easier to say that. Cool, you're still live and had log off for 30 minutes. Yeah, sorry. This is, we're pushing 3 hours. Got a lot to cover. Be great if you could look up property on just the zoning or whatever you want to do with the land. I know, right? I get that question a lot. And the way the zoning is so convoluted in every little jurisdiction that land shows up in, it's too hard to do that. It's just really too hard to do that. Like MLS websites try to do that, or MLS databases try to do that. And everyone I've looked at, it's never accurate. Multiple people entering properties and it's never accurate. I mean, I guess I could try to do a totalitarian style and manifest every property that's on the website has to have that before it can get onto the website. I think a lot of the properties aren't going to get onto the website. I think a lot of that has to be looked up by the buyer. I mean, really, it just does. I'm going to try to get more of it on the website in the future, but it really needs to be looked up by the buyer. It changes. Like, I've had it change from when I started researching the property to when I bought the property. I've had it change from when I bought the property to selling it on terms and the person actually gets it later on. Like, the zoning changes. Like, it changes. It changes, like, how can I advertise one zoning on the website and the thing changes? Or part of the property's got one zoning, another part of it's got a different zoning. Well, I mean, it's I don't know how to say it. Or the definition of RV okay in one area is like, yeah, it's okay for the first month. And over here, it's okay for 6 months. Over here, it's okay for 3 years. And over here, it's indefinite. They got to put a lot of caveats and details with each piece of it. And I think it starts making me liable for when I'm wrong. And I'm wrong a lot. Not that I mean to be, it's just because there's so many nitpicky little things about real estate that I get stuff wrong. And I don't want to be responsible for all these details of each property. So I'm teaching you guys to go research these things, and I'm asking you to do a lot of research on your own. Okay, so let's go back to the next thing on my list was legal lot creation. This is a higher level one. So if you haven't been put to sleep yet, or if you're Following closely either way. Legal lot creation. California. Let's do California first. California's got this MAP Act 1972. If people started making properties after 1972 and they're not mapped out right by a licensed surveyor or civil engineer and it's recorded and everything, they're not legal lots. And I've gotten lots of those. People try to sell them, especially San Diego County. Holy cow, there's a lot of illegal land. Um, it's not set up right. It just doesn't work, and the cost of getting it brought to presence a lot, and it's just that can't even price it in. So it doesn't make sense. So California's got their own stuff. Arizona's got different ones, like how many lots and how many you got to meet all these regulations when you're splitting land and stuff. It's different for each town and each county and each area. But it's got state laws and local laws. It's got to be met. New Mexico's got county specific ones. Some counties are wide open. Some counties have all kinds of rules. There's a bunch of properties that people have tried to sell me in New Mexico. I'd go research them, and they're not legal. You can't get a building permit because they don't meet zoning, right? Like the zoning requirements of those properties are not there. Either they don't have proper road access, they don't have the utilities, or they don't have something's missing that the county is requiring them to have before you can build on it. And that makes them an illegal lot. And it doesn't mean that you can't trade them. It just means you should price that in accordingly for how much it costs and time to fix it up to get to be legal at the point you could get a building permit. I don't think legal and illegal is the right word. It's like ready to get a building permit and not ready to get a building permit is maybe a better way of describing those. So Wyoming, I ran into some in Wyoming that they had a road, but the road is not up to standard. Like they had specific road standards. And I get it because they got winter and it freezes and stuff washes away and they don't want roads washing out. And you got to have a road that you can get safety, like fire trucks and ambulances stuff down. And they even had it specifically set for snowplows. You can snowplow it. If the roads didn't meet those requirements, you can't build on those properties. And so they're trying to sell me the properties for super cheap because you can't build on them, and they don't want to pay to go fix up the road to get 100 miles in the middle of nowhere or whatever to get the road up to standard so you can build on them. So call it legal lot, but I think whether the lots are okay to get or ready for a building permit or not, getting ready for building or not ready for a building permit is a different way. How much it costs to get them there. California, to throw one last one in California, natural hazard reports. California has some laws about natural hazard disclosures. You're supposed to disclose natural hazards on properties when you sell the properties, especially if you're a realtor. You're going through the whole realtor stuff. You really got to do I don't think you have to do it I think it's optional as a private party seller, but the realtors advise you to do it. And, all the licensed realtor companies require them to do it. So they always put that onerous over on the seller. It seems like me as a seller, I have to buy the natural hazard reports for them. Usually like $100 from title companies. But it shows stuff like naturally occurring asbestos in the area, or what level of fire danger is in the area, what kind of water flood danger is in the area, old mining operations or current mining operations that might bug people, farming, right to farm, whether people are going to be plowing the fields every couple months and you're going to get dust storms blowing you out or whatever. Earthquake dangers, quake fault lines, things like that. They cover EPA stuff, so it's natural hazards and environmental kinds of reports at the same time. So if a semi truck spilled a tanker of gasoline on the freeway, that kind of stuff starts showing up in the reports if it's close enough to your property, or if a gas station leaked, or if there's a refinery in the area, or all those environmental mess things. They start pointing that stuff out that's been reported in the area. It might be on your property. You buy the property and then you do the report to sell it and you go, holy cow, I didn't know that was going on there. So I've been getting more of these reports ahead of time. Other environmental stuff. So I'm down to the bottom of my list for now. There's a lot more things I'm sure I could add on there, but that's where I'm at for now. I want to thank you guys for listening so long to this almost 3-hour spiel of egg on my face and lessons I've learned dealing land that I hope not to have to learn again. And I'm trying to incorporate these into the business going forward. and try to share them on the website with the properties as we're presenting them. Julie Rose says, I've been taking my notes. Good. Loving Ivy Farm. Angela, do me too. Yeah, guys taking notes, buyers taking notes. So that's awesome. Yeah, Angela is saying we're Napoleonic here in Louisiana. Exactly. So, in my understanding, I didn't describe the Napoleonic way of land ownership, but the Napoleonic law, when you translate it into land ownership, it's like registered, with the county who owns the land. So when you guys are asking who owns the land, can't you just go to the county and check? I'm saying, well, kinda. It looks like it when you go and check, but with English civil law, it's a stack of paperwork you got to check through to make sure it's all in order. With Napoleonic law, what the register says is what the register says. So if Grandpa got it into Grandpa's name, he never switched it to the kids' names. Still in Grandpa's name. You got to go switch it to the kids' names after he died, right? And then switch it from their names to the grandkids' names, or whatever the course of business is. There's no room for argument in one way or another. There's no room for mistakes either. Like, you better get it right. Like, that's how it's going to get registered. There's pros and cons to both sides. It makes it, the idea of Napoleonic laws makes it simpler. They just say what it is, and that's what it is. You don't have to go through all the history side. So in that respect, it would probably make Louisiana land transfers easier, but I've never really dove into the Louisiana ones to know. Hawaii has a split system. They've got a Napoleonic system and an English system. You can pick which system you're running it through. They call it the land. I forget the names of them, but one's like the court case where the state will guarantee the ownership of the land. That's the Napoleonic way. And so there were a lot of questions about who owns the land after statehood in Hawaii. And so the state came up with a process to run it through the state courts, and the state just guarantees that after you run it through that process, then you own the land, or whoever that you transferred it to owns the land. And then it goes, basically no one wants to do that all the time because it takes 5 years or something to actually get through it. But once you get through that, you can switch it over to the register of land registrars or whatever, the normal way, like your county clerk or county recorder equivalent, and get it recorded. And then just, deed on top of deed just stacks up from there. So that's kind of a hybrid of the two. It's a weird place to do trades. Okay, so sorry I came in late, but does that mean if you buy a piece of land where you don't own the mineral rights, does that mean that a company or the government can just come in and take over your land? It's a really good question. So that's coming from something Extrano. I'm not going to pronounce the name right. And so this person is asking if the government can come in and take your land. I mean, the government can always come in and take your land under eminent domain for multiple different reasons. There's always that risk. They're supposed to pay you and compensate you for it. That's a different argument. But so the government can always take your land in the U.S. for some, put a highway in or put something in for the greater good idea. You can fight them. You might be able to fight them off, but chances are they're going to take it. If they got their mind set on it, they're going to take it. But for mining, I haven't seen them take land for mining in a long, long time. So if they're coming in for mining or oil and gas, usually, depending on the way the easements were written in the past, let's go back to California. So in California, I gave some examples earlier of the federal government transferring the land to grandpa, on down through the family. Federal government transfers it, you usually got the mineral rights. That was the point I was trying to make out of saying the federal government. And the state is like California or Arizona, or the state, especially California. They got a lot of land from the federal government for, becoming a state. That's part of the transfer. And then the state homesteaded a lot of land to individuals because the state wants to collect taxes on the property. They want you to build on the property. They want to collect more tax. They want business to happen. It's part of the natural progression of becoming a state and growing up, right? You want people to go build stuff. And so they would homestead the land, and mom and pop would move in. They got to grow, I don't know, sheep or something, whatever. And they get a big chunk of land in the middle of nowhere, and they go for it. They're going to set up their operation. They meet all the requirements, whatever they were at the time. They get the land. When California did that, lots of times, most all the time, all the ones I've seen where California homesteaded it, California kept the mineral, oil and gas and mineral rights. So the state of California keeps them. So different parts of California are being traded from the federal government to the private individuals, and other parts are going from the federal government to California, who stripped the mineral rights off to give them to individuals. And so when you go back to the deed history and you look at the old deeds coming from California, it says right on there, and it says different things on the deed. They'll retain the rights to oil, gas, minerals. The fire truck going by. Oil, gas, minerals, and the right to access to go build them out, extract them, work on them, like however they word it, right? There goes the ambulance. And so in that case, they could come in with the deed restrictions that are on your property and get access to your property and go work on those minerals and things. I don't even think they have to pay you in that scenario. So if you had it from the federal government and you had the land, and then, the state is like, oh, let me take that back. Someone, let's say you had the minerals and everything under the land, and someone's building, they found oil and gas, or let's do gold. They found a gold deposit all the way around you, and there's obviously some under your land too. They would most likely, they might have the mineral rights to it, but not the surface rights, because maybe somewhere along the way, some other company stripped the mineral rights off, or they, 1920s Depression time or something, that was the only thing they could sell, and they needed money for food. They gave up their mineral rights. So somebody got the mineral rights, and they kept them all this time, and now they're using them. They have the rights to the stuff underneath you, but they don't have the surface rights. And so in that case, if you get found in that scenario, like I've seen a lot of mining companies and extractive companies own mineral rights, but not the surface rights. And a lot of their sales pitch is, well, we need the money, or we got the money, or, as soon as we're sure we're going to go build and we got it financed, then we're going to buy out the landholders. They'll come to knock on your door and they'll try to haggle out some deal with you. And the last one there usually gets paid the best, right? You want to hold out the longest without killing the deal, and get paid the best and get out of their way eventually, and then let them go buy 5 times what you had somewhere else. So there's a lot of scenarios like that. The cards fall in lots of different ways, but I think if you go back and look through the deed history of that specific property, company in between that stripped off the rights, or some family, it doesn't have to be a company, it could be, Bob the rancher stripped off the rights back in the past. So you just got to look at the history of it. I'm going to keep trying to answer questions and shut this down before YouTube shuts me down for going too long. John Bisha, yes, curious. Whoever owns the mineral rights can come and start digging. It depends on their rights. Mineral rights, surface rights are different. I lost my spot in the lineup. Okay, so I think I found the last one. So, yeah, go build your whole homestead, and then, they're gonna have to give you some notices and something basic to kick you out of there. You still got like eviction state eviction standards and stuff. Might be 30 days or 90 days or whatever. So Iowawa says, I've made so many footnotes, I'm now in the basement of the second floor. Yeah, sorry guys. Save the video. Yeah, just wanted to refer back to, just save this video exactly. John Bursa says, does anyone know how much land you need, Arizona, to be able to target shoot on your own property? I think it's going to depend on what jurisdiction, Arizona, you're in, John. Like if you're in the city, different cities, and they're going to have different regulations. If you're in the country, they're going to have different regulations. And I think a lot of it's going to depend on your neighbors, right? Like I grew up in northern Michigan, and I think a lot of the same culture applies when it comes to shooting guns. I mean, I used to go in front of our house. We had a dock in front of the house on Lake Michigan on one of the bays, and I'd shoot clay pigeons off the end of the dock, and neighbors would come out and like look like, what is all that noise? What's going on? It's just Luke again shooting his guns. It depends on the neighbors. I mean, I'm sure they could have called the cops and said something. Maybe it's not so safe to be shooting a shotgun right close to other houses, but I don't know what the sheriff really would have done either. I mean, go shooting behind the house, the woods go out in the middle of nowhere, and just go shoot out that way too. I mean, deer season in Michigan is also crazy. November 15th, opening day of rifle season in Michigan, it's like a war zone. I mean, you can't count all the shots. I used to try to count the shots starting in the morning and waiting going in a deer stand or whatever. You totally lose track. You lose track how many shots before the sun comes out. I mean, it's just like automatic guns going off and rifles and shotguns and pistols, and just everyone probably drinking too much and shooting everything that moves. It's a different culture, and it's much more gun friendly in the countryside parts of Michigan. I think Arizona is very much like that, much more gun-toting, gun-friendly. But you get the crazy neighbor. I mean, they'll do everything they can to tell you not to, no matter what size property you have. Okay, land wrangler. In Arizona, you usually just need to be outside city limits to shoot. Yeah, exactly. I think that's a better definition than what I'm coming up with. Sorry, John, I'm not in Arizona. Beach volcanoes, John. Okay. EOWAWA 1, John, go to the NRA website. They will tell you all the state rules. There's a good one. I should put that in the listings of the ads for the land for sale. NRA says you can shoot this and that here, not that. Great job as always. Okay, a bunch of thumbs up. Thanks, guys. Herb, thanks, Angela. Such a useful video. Thank you for taking the time to share all the information, Luke. Thanks, guys. Much appreciated. It's 1 o'clock. I got stuff to do today. Start buying more land, Northerners. Yeah, such valuable info. Okay, thanks, guys. Thanks for all these comments. I'm trying to skip through them. John Bisha, I want to move to northern Arizona and looking to get a sweet deal. I mean, pretty much everywhere in northern Arizona, you can shoot your heart's content out. It's good land to go shooting, except for maybe downtown Flagstaff, downtown. What are the other two towns there along the 40? I can't think of the name of 3 towns. Joseph City. There's like 3 or 4 towns along the 40. Those are probably the only places you can't really shoot. Everywhere else you can shoot. I have a friend, Northeast Arizona. They got hit with a lot of snow this last winter. It probably makes it green. Julie Rowe, I'm going to travel out west, look at the lands to see neighbor or layout, try to find a piece I want to build and live on, I guess be the best way to find, I hope. Yeah, like an RV kind of trip. Just go camp on a bunch of these properties and look at them. Go stay there, see if the neighbors come piss you off or not. And see if you like the area, see if you like the grocery stores, see if you like the gas stations and the food and the supplies, all kinds of stuff in the area that you care about that I probably wouldn't even think of. Guys going back and forth. Fire truck that deep in the woods. Yeah, exactly. The fire trucks come on drones these days. There we go. 30 foot right away for the drone guys. Okay, I might be skipping some stuff here because I think you guys are talking to each other a bunch. Here's one. Luke, did you have to evict anyone from property before you sold it to another? What I usually do is I price it in. I tell the person that's buying it, I got a problem. I got this property and there's so-and-so is on the property and I bought it and I didn't know there was someone living on the property. It's your problem now at this sweet price. And I don't know how easy it's going to be to solve or not. Here's all the communications I've had. I just try to share everything that I got and I know. And that's my favorite way of solving that. Another way, I had a particular property I bought from a church. It's like 40 acres in northern Navajo County. And this was a long time ago. I paid $1,500. And the church was so happy they were going to get new carpet. They knew that was a carpet bill. They wanted to pay for someone in their church was going to install it and they needed the supplies. So it was like $1,500 to recarpet the church. And they said their church, the carpet was all threadbare and everything. They really needed the money. They didn't want to pay the tax on the land. They were so happy they got my offer. And so they sold me the land. And I got the land, and the church had been paying the taxes for like 20 years or something and sitting on the land. And, so the church was in the south and the land was in Arizona. They had never been there. They didn't know anything about the land. And had a guy I think he was from Texas. He bought the land and he moved his family over there. He had a bunch of kids and they all drove over there and they went to look at the land. There's somebody living there, like in a couple cars. They had a bonfire, like 2 or 3 cars. They were living out of their cars and they're living on my land that I sold the guy. I didn't know there was anyone on the land. He sent me pictures and everything, and I was like, oh man, the guy just drove over there from Texas, ready to move in, And I was like, what do I do? And so I started calling around town, started calling the feed store. I started calling the feed store knows everybody around, all the ranchers, they know everybody. I call the feed store first and lots of times. But I called, I think I called the local cafe, and like whoever answered the phone at the cafe, I was like, is there somebody there in the cafe who lives up north and knows this land? And she handed the phone to, whatever his name was, right? Big Bass or something, like that classic local name, guy that's been living in town forever. And I told him my problem, and he said, you need to talk to whatever the guy's name was over at the church, the local church. And it's the local Mormon church. So I called the guy that he referred me to at the local Mormon church. And I said, so-and-so from the cafe said I should call you. And I told him what was wrong with my property and my predicament, that this nice family from Texas wants to move to your town. And I sold them the land, and I didn't know that there's people living on the land. And I'm wondering what you guys do about something like that in your area. What's the customs? What do you do? He said, who is it? Where is, I know where that is. I know where you're talking about. And so this guy, local Mormon church guy, knows everybody in the area. It's a small town, right? And so he drove out there and he's like, I'll call you back. And I didn't really understand. But he called me back like later that day. Like I was talking to him in the morning. It was later the day. He got in the car after talking to me on the phone and he drove out to the property. And he went to the people that are living on the property. And you know what he did? He offered them other land that the Mormon church has in the area. He said, why don't you guys move off this land because someone else wants to move here and move over here where we have all this land sitting there. There's nothing's happening. You can park there. And he probably told them to come to church and stuff too. I didn't get that side of the story, but they moved. And so he's like, they're moving. They'll be gone. They won't be there tonight. Like, really? I couldn't believe it. I was so grateful. I was thanking him up and down. And maybe it's my name, Luke Smith. I don't know. But he went for it. I called the guys from Texas back. And I said, I got it solved. You guys are going to have to help me out here and do some thank yous to the guy at the church. I told him the name and everything. And so the guys from Texas, they went out there. And sure enough, the people were gone. They moved into the property. And they called me back later. And they gave a big thank you. And they met the guy from the church. And I don't know if they fell in, if there was the same church or what. But they hit it right off. And they got welcomed into town. They got introduced to all kinds of people. And it worked. And so that's my favorite solution, to finding somebody on the land and trying to figure out what to do. That way everybody won. The people on the land didn't get evicted. They got asked politely to move somewhere else where they're welcome. The people that bought the land got the land. And they got welcome into the community. They got to meet everybody, probably figure out whose kids are the same age and start playing and everything. And it all worked. And I got to keep the money for selling the land. And everybody wins, right? So there's usually solutions like that if you put your mind to it, and it just takes some time, and that's how it works. Angela says, Luke, should get each of us willing to get pictures, videos close to where we live all around the good old USA. Yeah, exactly. Collect more pictures and videos, and I mean, feel free. I mean, lots of people send me pictures and videos when they're touring properties and stuff. I don't ever know if I should put them on because I didn't like pay for them. I don't know if I have copyrights to them. I'm always weird about that. And lots of times people take pictures and videos of the wrong properties, like just literally the wrong property. And I end up presenting the property and it's like across the street or the wrong one or something. Dave Tassi, it says Big Bass. Yeah, you know what I mean, right? I don't remember the guy's name. Freedom, Liberty. Wow. Yeah, Angela, I do. Pays to talk to people. Believers, social, Luke. Yeah, Believers, social, Luke Smith. Exactly. So, yeah, you just call. Just call. And I think my favorite call out of that list isn't so much the local cafe, but the local feed store. And a lot of these rural properties, I learned it from my wife, right? She buys food from the local feed store, and the feed store doesn't just sell food, they deliver. Like they'll deliver hay and grain and stuff for your cows and for your dog and for your chickens and for whatever animal you might have living in the country. Most everybody has some animals and they get some food delivered. Those guys know all the gates. They know all the ranchers. They know all those people. They're like a really good resource to have. And so you can usually just call them and say, tell them what you're doing. And they're hometown people. They're not realtor people trying to collect commissions from you and get in the middle of the trade. They help you. Yeah. Okay, Jeffrey Dace, it's hilarious. God solved it for you, Luke. Exactly. Yeah. The tenacity of that guy from that church to jump in the car and run out. He's had a lot of training. Small town, Saturday night. Wow, exactly. In the mining business, what I used to do was... I should bite my tongue. But I don't do it anymore, so it doesn't matter so much. So I'd call the local bars, so we'd be speculating on mining companies that are drilling for gold or silver, whatever. And if the discovery's in like an English speaking part of the world, it's great. And if it's not, there's some services like three-way calling services I would use, and you call through like three-way calling service. It's whatever the local language is, and get them. And you call a local bar, and you call the bar that's close to where they're drilling for whatever mineral it is you think the discovery might be on, and you just buy a round of drinks. You can buy them over the phone. Buy a round of drinks. How many guys you got in a bar? Are they working? Are they drilling? Are they drillers? Are they working in the fields? Yeah. Okay, found the right bar. Let's buy these guys a round of drinks. And I'm grateful that they're working on the project, and hopefully the project's coming along. You don't even have to ask. They'll just start telling you about the project. They'll get on the phone and thank you and everything else. And you can find out all kinds of information about mineral projects that way too. So that's a trick from back before I started doing land deals. You call local stuff like that. So Luke, you're using green screen in your background. Yeah, this is a green screen. This is just, I don't know if I touch it, it'll go weird. Let's see if it, here's the edge of it. There's my wall. Yeah, this is a green screen. TKS Luke's Look great, Luke, great video. Thanks, guys. Thanks. Autocorrect. In the Midwest, it's locals. Okay. It's the local sale barn. Yeah, sale barn cafe, exactly. Okay, so what I've been doing in the past numerous videos is I've been giving away mailers. And these mailers are how I find properties to buy. I send out cash offers. I say, here's how much I'm willing to pay for land, and your specific land. And, if you're willing to take my offer, sign here and send it back to me. It's not always that easy. People call and ask questions, and they, haggle out other deals and stuff. But some of them say, yeah, I'll take the offer. So I send out a lot of these cash offers. And I've promised to send out a bunch of these in the past that I haven't sent out. I've sent out a lot of them, but I haven't sent them all out yet. And a couple guys are asking for updates, and I'm trying to get as much of that mail out as I can, as fast as I can go. I'm going to get cut off here today. I'm just going to have a little bit of time to work on some mailers. And then tomorrow I got all day to work on mailers. I'm working on mailers, trying to catch them up and get all these mailers out. And we buy some more land and get some more deals. So the guys that are paying for mailers, I'm getting that land and getting the mailers going as fast as I can. Just like this video, I get bogged down in doing due diligence on buying these properties instead of doing mailers. I want to be buying more properties and doing more deals. But at the same time, I want to give away mailers because I want to keep the precedence up of giving away mailers in the past. And so if you've listened to this thing for over 3 hours, it's the least I can do is give you some mailers. So I've been giving away 500 mailers. Cost me a couple $100 to do that. And there's 37 people watching right now. So anyone who's watching can have a shot. I'm going to ask a basic question. Let me pop this out. I'm going to put the chat on the green screen if I can hit the right buttons. Let's do, there's a lot of, clicking around. We'll do that. Okay. So the chat's over this shoulder here somewhere. And I'm going to ask, someone's putting numbers out there already. I don't even know what they're for. I'm trying to guess what I'm going to ask. Let's do the fifth person this time. I think the fifth will work. I don't have to count as high. And let's ask a question about early on. If you've really been listening to this show for over 3 hours, sorry for the length. The first thing I had on my list was probably the most obvious thing it comes to. Number one on the list of egg on my face. This is what goes wrong when you buy land. Please try to avoid these problems. The number one thing I put on the list, I started the list off with number one. It should be at the top of the list. It solves all these other problems. The number one thing, the fifth person to guess that number one thing, I'll give 500 mailers to, and then I'll mail these things out. I'll mail them in my name. I'll answer the calls. I'll do all this crazy due diligence on these properties. I'll probably finance them myself or with friends, family, maybe you if you want to finance them, and get them bought, get them sold. And if there's a profit in there, and no more stuff on the list kills the deal somewhere along the way, kills the profits, we can make some money. I'll split that money with you after it's financed and the expense of financing it and all the other expenses that go along with it. Whatever I get to keep at the end of the day on that deal, I split it with you half and half, and I'll give you half that money. I'm probably going to need your information to do like 1099s and stuff, but we'll figure that out later when I'm actually giving you the money. So the fifth thing. So the list starts going here. I see Jason Macy saying it first. Cost. Yeah, I was going to say market price, but the cost. It's just the same idea. The cost. Jason Macy, number one. Jeffrey Day, number two. Due diligence. Yeah, you got to do due diligence, but the main thing you're doing due diligence on is cost, price. Dave, 3. I got to count. 3. Jarrett Curley, 4. Jovi Bentulu, 5. Okay. Javi, however you say it, that's the winner. So if I did it wrong or spelled it wrong or counted wrong or whoever, Jovi wins. Please email Gilian at Rural Vacant Land. Gilian at ruralvacantland.com. So please send her your contact information. I would like your phone number, your email address, your actual address to send you a check later on someday and the tax paperwork of giving you money. What else do I need? Just contact information. Just basic contact information, like real name, not like a YouTube username, but tell me the name that you're winning too, but like your real name that I can pay you with, and your contact information. So send that over and I'll get it into my databases, and I'll get the mail sent out. It's probably gonna take me a while because I'm slow at doing this, and because I spend a lot of time working on these mailers. I care a lot about them. I'm paying for them. I want them to work. I want really good deals to come in. And then when the deals come in, if they come in, you might not get any deals. But if they come in, I'll do due diligence, all this kind of due diligence stuff on them to make sure they're good ones we should be buying. Finance them, sell them, and probably run them through title on both sides, figure out how much we get in the end, and share that half of that with you and see how long that takes. And you get to see the database software that I've got set up now. It'll give you updates along the way as people are calling back and they're yelling at us, or they're happy, they're taking the offers. You see my due diligence stuff going by. You see the pictures, the diagrams, the maps, the conversations with all different county peoples and things, doing notes on them. And then eventually, as we buy the land, notes from people that are shopping the land, questions and things. And as we're selling the land, the whole transaction, I think, is getting a lot more transparent. I got to take the timeline from this off the screen to something more reasonable. My timelines on it are too long right now, but I'm working on that. And thank you. Thanks, guys. Everyone's saying thank you. Thanks, everyone, for listening, watching. And on the recorded version of this, I think it'd go faster because you can skip around and go back and forth and listen to stuff. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. And got it. I was 6. Sorry, Nover. I think you've won in the past, right? A lot of you guys have won in the past. So thank you, everyone. Talk to you again in the next one. Bye.